Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Bob has just opened the Zoom room, so we see people coming in, and we are going to, Bob and I are just going to chat a little bit so you can make sure that you hear us. And
Yep,
if you have any technical issues, you can put them in the chat.
yep,
But we'll give it a minute until we start seeing that the participants either slow down or stop.
yeah.
So hope you are all in New Jersey, you're all safe and you're warm, and hopefully you have delayed openings or closings so
Mm-hmm.
that you could work from home.
Yep. Yep. It's definitely not not too bad out there by me, but it's definitely it's like not enough to snowplow, but enough to be a little treacherous. So you know, it is what
Nothing
it is.
worse than
It's
that.
supposed to melt later on today, so um good morning, Terry. Um so Michelle, do we want to do the logistics kind of stuff in the
As soon
beginning?
as we know that everybody is here, and
Okay.
to me, it looks like it kind of stopped right now, the attendance coming in. So, wanted to, let me first say good morning and welcome to everyone. And I want to welcome you if you're a brand new director. We are really glad that you're here. We will be having two of these training sessions, one today that goes a half day, one next Wednesday, another half a day. These trainings really are consist of sort of all of the basics that we think a new director needs to have in their toolkit. And we do this every year. It's an annual thing. And this year last year actually, we also started doing a trustee orientation every year. So look forward to that in the future and to lots of other events that will be coming out from the state library. But so this morning we have our agenda, and I think Bob is going to
I'm
try to
posting it in the
in a
chat right
minute,
now.
posting it in the chat. And so I want to welcome you here this morning. My name is Michelle Stricker, and I am the Deputy State Librarian right now until March 1st, when I formally retire. We have Bob Keith here. Of course, everybody knows Bob. Bob is going to be, Bob's always on the trustee and the director trainings, and Bob is going to be sort of our tech person in the background today if you have any issues. And he's going to give you some instructions in a minute. So listen very carefully because we don't want to get Bob upset. So
Upset?
because nothing will happen if he
I
does.
never get upset.
And so with that, before I make some former announcements, I would like to introduce our state librarian, Jen Nelson, who's also here with us this morning, who wants to give a welcome to you all. And I do want to say that I know that we have new library directors here, but we also have some people who have been around for a few years who like to come and like to take this training every year. We have some people who want to be directors that are here, and we welcome you to learn in this session. We have branch managers, and the nice thing about doing this online now is we used to be very limited in space to only 25. And now with our Zoom capacity, we have up to seats for 500. So we really welcome you all to join us this morning, and we're glad you're here. Some of the things, especially things in library law, and other issues, budgeting and things like that, or just kind of things you need to brush up on from time to time as a library director, and you just sort of need some additional CE training on that. So we welcome you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Nelson. So good morning, Jen.
Good morning, Michelle. It's nice to see you. I want to acknowledge the work that Michelle's done over the last, is it 19 years?
19
At the
years.
New Jersey State Library and welcoming directors and trustees to their role in the state. I've really appreciated the opportunity to work with her and we'll miss her. And I think one of the credits, a big credit needs to go to her for the continue continuity of the sessions that we offer, and the frequency that we do them. So thank you, Michelle. And for the rest of you, welcome. It's a pleasure I'll be peeking around seeing y'all today. I am the state librarian, so we do all the stuff that relates to federal and state funds in the state. And a bunch of other things. I invite you to give me a call, drop me an email if you're interested in just having a conversation about libraries in general, your library in particular, what's happening in the world, or you really don't need a good reason to call or reach out. I'm happy to chat. I like meeting new people, and all of you are important to the work that we do here. And I always love a library visit, so I'm hobbled at the moment. I broke my foot and can't drive, but other than that, I'd love to go and visit and hang out with y'all in your spaces. So please keep me in mind this spring as the weather gets better. And I hope that you'll consider today's session an invitation to continued conversation with the State Library about being a library director or working in libraries in New Jersey. So thank you. I hope it's a great day.
Thank you, Jen. Good to see you here. And I also want to introduce the new director of library development. And she's here with us this morning. She's, I think she's going to be on camera, but then probably listening in most of the time. I don't know her schedule, but Jennifer Brenner, welcome. Congratulations on your new role in library development. It has been an honor for me to work there for 19 years, and I know that you are going to have just a wonderful experience working with the team at the State Library. They are the best. So, Jen, if you would just unmute yourself for a second and just tell us, a little bit about you so everyone gets to know you. But I know that you are a well-known name in New Jersey, so I don't think that, a lot of people are going to say, oh, I never heard of her before. So tell us a little bit about where you came from, what you're doing, and if there's anything that you have going on in library development that you think is important for us to know.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me here. Yes, my name is Jennifer Brenner. I formerly am the director of Cumberland County, which my predecessor is in this training. So hi, Terry. How are you? Yeah, I have some big shoes to fill from Michelle here, so I'm trying to just listen in and learn some things as I'll be taking this over as she passes the torch. But other than that, I was you 4 or 5 years ago. I was sitting at this training saying, boy, I hope I learned some stuff. And I did. So please just pay attention, listen to what's happening, and get the contact information. You're not going to be able to remember everything that you hear today, but if you get the contact information, you'll be able to reach out and contact Bob, myself, Jen, not Michelle. She'll be out on vacation or enjoying retirement. But, the rest of us, we're all here to help you, and we'll continue to help you. LBD's got a lot of things going on right now. LDB has a lot of things going on right now. And I'll let the staff tell you about that at the next training. So, but thanks for having me, Michelle. Thanks for everything you've done. I probably will still be reaching out to you to get some tips and best practices on how to run these kind of things. But everyone enjoy your day, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. You can reach out to me anytime. And what I told Jen is when she was coming aboard, and Jen, you have to say this is true. You have the best office in the entire state library, right? It's a great office. So enjoy. Thanks for being here today. And I look forward to talking to you and, seeing what's going on with LDB in the future. So with that, before I introduce our keynote speaker, I'm going to turn it over to Bob. And oh no, I have one more thing I do want to let you know about before I turn it over to Bob, because I would be remiss if I didn't plug my own programs. We are running a telehealth and library summit on February 27th, and the registration link is up online on the State Library website right now, which is a brand new website, by the way, so check it out. And it's telehealth and libraries, but really, you've all heard of the term telehealth and libraries, and you're probably familiar with what many libraries are doing, not only in New Jersey, but throughout the country, in offering telehealth and health literacy services to their patrons. But the purpose of this summit is because about 3 years ago, I worked with Karen Perry at East Brunswick Public Library. And with an ARPA grant, she and I wrote a toolkit for a pilot program using iPads that we deployed in New Jersey libraries. And we deployed 450 libraries in 450 iPads, sorry, in 150 libraries to implement this program. And it was something that I took a look at that I thought, I think there's an easier way that even small libraries can participate in this sort of telehealth movement, which, popped up, during COVID, but now that is not going away. And that I think that libraries need to be involved with to offer with their communities. So the purpose of the summit is going to be to introduce the new online toolkit website. And we are going to, it's a 6-module, very simple instructions for you to implement telehealth in your libraries. And it's very scalable. So whether you have one person doing it or a team of people doing it, one iPad or 10, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's very low cost. So the only cost is your time or your reference librarian's time and the cost of an iPad or how many you want to buy. And we're going to walk you through each module so that you see exactly how to set up this program. And so I hope that you will check us out on the website. And I really hope you'll join us for that conference and their summit. And after you digest everything and we give you the demo of the toolkit, I really hope that you'll consider implementing something in your libraries, especially for those libraries that are in low service areas where the people may not have broadband, where the affordability of smart devices, is a hardship. This can be a program where you could really stand out in your community. And I know people in your community are coming to you for those kind of services already. So with that, thank you for indulging me. Hype that program. And Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you for any instructions for the rest of us, and then I'll introduce our speaker.
Okay. So most of you have probably been to one or more of these webinars in the past, but for the very few of you that haven't, we have 2 windows in Zoom for you to interact with us, the chat window and the Q&A window. The chat window we like to reserve for discussion amongst yourselves and or technical issues or things like that, they can't hear or they can't see or something like that. The Q&A window we like to reserve for actual questions for the speaker. And usually we like to reserve those until the end, unless the speaker says they'd like to be interrupted in the middle of their talk. And so if you have any questions for Bobby Lee or me later on, or any of the other speakers today, please put them in the Q&A box and not in the chat. If you want to put links in the chat or something like that, that's fine, but leave the Q&A for questions. This session is being recorded, just so you know. It will be put up on our YouTube channel as quickly as I can get it up there. So if you miss anything or anything like that, you can go back and watch it later. And Michelle, I think that's about it for now.
Bob,
What's that?
do you have access to the agenda?
I can share it. Yeah.
Just we'll share it real quickly before we get Bobby Lee on, so you can see the way the day is going to go. I think this may have been sent out, although I'm not sure, everybody. So there you go. Here's our half a day schedule. We're going to start with our keynote, and then we're going to go into a presentation by Bob on library law, where to find it. We'll have a short break. We'll then bring on the 2 Pats, and that is their formal name, the 2 Pats, Pat Massey and Pat Tumulty, to talk about working with trustees. And finally, we're having our very own Michael Mazikian, who was a long time a library director at a few libraries, talk about library budgeting. Thanks, Bob. So with that, we'll get started with our keynote. And our first topic today is AI at work, harnessing artificial intelligence in public libraries. Now, Bobby Lee Schlosar has been about 19 years as a technology librarian at the New Hampshire State Library, where she leads efforts to bring innovative technology to public libraries. And so her goal is to equip librarians with the skills and confidence to introduce new technologies into their communities. And she says, like she said, earlier to me in her personal time, she enjoys seeing the world. So she and I have talked travel on several occasions. Now, I met Bobby several years ago. We have what's called COSLINE, which is the Northeast Conference, where all the heads of library development get together once a year. And it's absolutely my favorite conference. I get to talk to all of my peers, and we share what we're doing, and we steal from each other. And so, I've known Bobby at these conferences over time, but a couple of years ago, she did this presentation for us on AI. Now, AI is everywhere. Okay. Everybody should be doing it, shouldn't be doing it. Is it real? What's this? And what I liked about Bobby's presentation is that she geared it to librarians and library staff in ways that were very, very practical in how you use this. Now, many of you probably use this already, but I found that the things that she demoed were just very, very useful in the library. And she's going to talk about some of those things. And I just want you to note too that one of the things I like the best about her presentation is the way her youth services librarians use AI. So I think that that's something that you could share with your staff. And I know that Bobby, just knowing her over the years, would always be happy to hear from you if you have any questions. So with that, Bobby in New Hampshire, who has snow just like we do, probably more, welcome to our new director's training. I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Really appreciate your time and the efforts that you've put into your presentation. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, hey, thanks so much, Michelle. And thank you everyone for inviting me today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen. And when I'm doing so, I'm hoping to also share my audio and from everything. And I get a little bit nervous on Zoom. So here's what I'm going to say. If you at any time have questions, please pass them along. I love the interaction. Sometimes talking into the Zoom screen just feels like talking into the void. So I would love to hear from you. Okay. Can I just confirm that you are not actually seeing my speaker notes at this time?
Confirmed.
Thank you so much. Excellent. And I'm going to minimize some Zoom screens, and I'm also not going to try to monitor anything else. So if there is any questions, please just verbally verbally convey that to me so that I don't get too tied up with monitoring too much.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm on it. Don't worry about it.
Excellent. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Bobby Lee Slosar. I've been the technology librarian here in New Hampshire for 19 years, which is just insane for me to think about it. But thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and to demonstrate how AI tools can be used in public libraries. So first, I want to just informally acknowledge that I'm going to be jumping back and forth between the presentation, between live accounts, and live demos. Things could get a little bit chaotic. So please let me know what questions you have, or if you'd like me to dig in deeper into any one particular thing. And also note that I'm using my personal computer because I have a lot of personal paid for accounts that the state of New Hampshire does not pay for. So that's my disclaimer there. So just very, very briefly, I mean, we have all watched enough nightly news segments to know what is AI. So I'm going to keep this simple and just simply state that the term artificial intelligence is used to describe technologies that allow a machine to replicate human behavior. Now, people often ask me why I'm passionate about talking about AI, and they often assume it's because I enjoy learning about technology. And yeah, I will admit that that's part of the appeal, but it's mostly because I see how quickly these technologies are developing, and I know that librarians can have an important role in this AI-driven world. Libraries are uniquely positioned in their communities as long-standing institutions for adult education and can help patrons bridge this new digital divide. So librarians are also trusted individuals that can help others navigate a world where you won't always be able to believe what you see. And speaking of believing what you see, please know that each image in this presentation has been generated with a text-to-image generator. and all the prompts used for the images are given within the speaker notes at the bottom of each slide. So let's just take a moment to acknowledge the rapid advances in technology. Now, I think this is a great timeline from Our World in Data. So note that in 1990, only 0.05% of the world were online. The first iPhone was then launched a mere 17 years later. And then another short 17 years after that, we're seeing AI with test scores that nearly match or at times exceed human performance. So the charts that we're going to see, also from Our World in Data, shows various AI capabilities. The only thing I really want you to do is pay attention to the trajectory of each line. So the x-axis shows the year starting with 1998 and ending with 2023. And the darker horizontal line at the top is labeled 0. Well, that's human performance. And take a look at how quickly all of these trajectories have just absolutely skyrocketed upward. Now, AI, you may be hearing a little bit about AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. So OpenAI recently announced that their newest model, O3, scored an 87.5% on what's called the ARC-AGI. It's benchmark. It's an abstraction and reasoning core for artificial general intelligence. So this test is a measurement of AI's ability to reason. And to put this achievement into perspective, in 2020, the best score achieved by AI was just 21%. And the previous best score was only 55%. But it should be noted that while AI is seeing significant jumps on this test, this is not truly AGI, not yet. The O3 model is coming closer to that 95% achievable by intelligent humans, but it did fail a number of questions that humans really wouldn't have any trouble answering. So what is spurring this rapid improvement in AI reasoning? Well, these new AI models are built on traditional large language models, but they're also developed to undergo what's called a chain of thought process that evaluates its own outputs and makes corrections as needed. And it turns out that having AI evaluate itself and self-correct is actually more efficient and more powerful than training a smarter AI to begin with. Now, given that AI skills are nearly surpassing those of humans, let's take a look and explore how AI can be helpful to librarians in the workplace. My first talk is about reference work. And I love this quote, and I really apologize for not having the original source. But think of it this way, the internet is like having a set of encyclopedias that you're just at your disposal, but AI is like having your own private tutor for every possible subject. So I think of all those times as a reference librarian where I was asked to find information about a subject that I just didn't know very much about. I likely missed the opportunity to dig deeper into the topic and provide the student with either different sources or maybe even a different angle for their research. On the practical side, I think we're going to start seeing some enhanced search capabilities for librarians and patrons. I joke and say it's going to be able to, we're finally going to be able to answer that universal question, what is the title of that book? The cover was red. So what's interesting is that we're starting to see this with Talpa search from LibraryThing. And Talpa AI has trained an AI model on both book covers and book-related search terms. So it's really likely that we're going to start to see some amazing AI search features that are added into library catalogs in the not so distant future. And one thing I'm going to talk about is, I'm going to talk later on about knowledge bases, but I'm going to circle back to that and kind of keep it on track here. Now, these large language models or chatbots truly excel in writing. They can help someone who's not a creative writer, like myself, with fun rhymes or stories and children's events, or write engaging social media content, or some sincere letters of appreciation. Now, professionally, chatbots can drastically reduce the amount of time needed to produce a variety of content. Now, of course, we've got some folks asking, "Oh, is this cheating?" I don't believe so. The best results for creating documents, especially professional documents, don't come from just asking a chatbot to start from scratch and write something for you. Instead, librarians have to provide very specific details, such as the goals and objectives for a technology plan or the specific details of a policy, and then use the chatbot for formatting the document and adding in all those filler words so that it reads well and frankly reads like a policy or a technology plan. But before we go live with the chatbot, let's talk about what makes an effective prompt. To start, prompts that include instructions on AI's role will likely produce content that's a much better fit for your needs. Examples of system prompts would be, "I am a professional yet friendly public librarian," or prompts that include instructions to write a letter in the voice of a mature academic librarian, or to explain this concept in a way a 10-year-old will understand. Now, the next thing to consider is giving the chatbot an overview of the request and the output you wish to receive. And if this is a big project, break your request down into smaller parts. So once you have the desired output for one piece, you can ask AI to replicate the process for other parts as needed, and then continue to grow in that manner, allowing AI to fully accomplish a task before adding to it. Now, for the demo, what I'm going to use is an event planning demo. So when I present this workshop to librarians, folks that are not overly excited about AI, get excited about it when we do this. So consider everything that goes into creating a public program. You've got successful programming requires, a solid plan of action, and AI can help librarians come up with fantastic ideas, organize the tasks, and even write up the publicity materials and performer contracts. So let's see a little bit about this in action. So at this time, I'm going to steal a prompt. I have some of these already made for me. So that you don't have to see me type. And in this prompt, I'm basically explaining, I am a public librarian, have a big program to put on, and I explain what the program is or the benefit is going to be, when it's going to be, some details about it. And at this point, I'm going to head over to Claude AI. This is a free subscription from Claude, and I've put in my request. It's providing me with my social media output, giving me different shifts, generating everything. Now, what I say to librarians is, this is probably not the perfect plan. However, it gives you a starting point, and anything that you want more details on, you can simply re-ask. You can make any changes that you need in order to do it. So this is where a lot of librarians think, oh, yeah, maybe that could save me a little bit of time. Another one that we're going to look at really quickly, pardon me while I switch my screens around a little bit. I have another one that I like to do, and this is for a letter of appreciation. I really struggle with just coming up with the right words for something like this. So I'm going to come over to ChatGPT this time, and just using ChatGPT 01, I'm going to put in my letter of appreciation request. Now, a couple of things I want to recommend is I do anonymize much of the stuff that I put in. I wouldn't have put in a true name. I wouldn't have put in the true library name. So be careful about things like that. And I'm also putting in other information such as, will likely be shared with her friends and family and be read out loud at a party. So think about the tone, think about anything that you can put in that would be helpful for the AI to develop it for you. Wonderful. Much better than I would have done. I will admit to being for using this for all retirement greetings, letters, other things, because it really does save me a lot of brain power. I'm going to pause just at that moment just to make sure that there's nothing that we want to talk about when it comes to just basic chatbot letter or written stuff.
Hi. So we have two questions in the Q&A. First one's an easy one. Are you going to provide the slides and links for us to post on the website after everything's done?
Yeah, I've already exported this as a PowerPoint into my Google Drive, so I'm happy to do that. And the presentation notes will be in there as well.
Okay, great. And then the second question is, considering the proliferation of AI hallucinations and AI slop in the information landscape, how are reference librarians using AI? It seems like you are indicating to use it as a search engine, which seems reckless when looking for reliable and factual information.
No, I wouldn't use it for a search engine. I hope I haven't given that impression. I think there are better ways to look for a search engine or look for results on the web. I guess what I want to say is that sometimes it allows you to learn more about a subject. So for instance, one option that I have, let me go back and show that. So I kind of glossed over that one. But let's say I have a homework help question and I'm doing an essay or someone's doing an essay on Don Quixote. And we really want to explore the relationship between Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. So what thoughts do you have on the topic? And so I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to put it into, I'll start a new chat here and ask ChatGPT. It's been a long time since I've read Don Quixote and I may not have read it perfectly because it was in Spanish. So I'm going to get some ideas. So notice the reasoning here. And so what it's doing is it's not giving me specific answers, but it is giving me points that I can go through and say, all right, what about talking about Don Quixote as an idealist? Maybe we can explore that topic a little bit further, and from there we can direct the research in that manner. I hope that helps a little bit.
And let's see, the final question here for now is, why are you making requests anonymous?
Yeah, it's probably my personal preference for privacy. I don't know if I'd want to put in my coworkers' names or other things that, ultimately we don't know how far this information or how long this information is being kept. We don't understand, what type of security risk there could be. It's just something that's my preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the Q&A questions for now.
Excellent. Okay. So let's move on to a little bit of fun things. Let's briefly touch on some of a few of the creative things AI can do for librarians. So of course, the most widely used is text to image generation tools. So the benefit of using AI images is that instead of spending time searching for free clip art and images, you can create your own at this point. Now, it is important that librarians be forthcoming about images that were created with AI. And I do strongly recommend that they include the date and the prompt the date and prompt for the items that are going to be disseminated widely. So for instance, for each of the images used in this presentation, you'll find the prompts and the dates listed at the bottom of the speaker notes. And frankly, why is this important to me? It's to avoid copyright challenges. So let's take a look at a image generation site here. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to give a little bit of a combo here. So I'm also going to show you a site called Morph AI. And what Morph does is it enhances your prompts to the goal of hopefully producing richer images. So in the photo here, my original prompt was a little bit anemic compared to the details that Morpher added to the prompt. So let's see just a little bit of this in action. right. So this is my pre-done prompt. Instead I'm going to say, let's see, I'm going to head over to Midjourney. And actually, I had a presentation yesterday and I did this, so I might want to think of something else. I'm happy to take suggestions at this time. Feel free to let Bob know. So this is the family that was standing in front of a piece of artwork from the Renaissance period in a museum. Midjourney is, I should explain, Midjourney is a subscription AI text to image generator. It does cost $10 a month, but I think that librarians would get a big bang for their buck for the $10. Now, the next prompt that I have here is after I ran the original prompt through Morpher. Now, in this particular case, because I think it's a Polaroid photo, it didn't really give me the detail that I was hoping for in the final product, but you can see how the prompt itself is so much more detailed. So let's move over to Morpher for just a second here. I'm going to start generating and let's see how this works. So in this case, it's a family standing in front of a piece of artwork. So why don't I say, how about a family standing in front of the Pantheon in Rome? That is my original prompt. Now I can go through and I can put in a lot of different prompt styles, use a prompt builder. I can get very detailed, but that would imply that I would really know some of the stuff to put in. So instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat and just click on generate 2 prompts for me. This is a free service for a certain amount of credit. And, oh, the request failed. Okay, I wonder why. Live demonstrations, you just never know what's going to happen. Oh, it's still failing. Okay, sorry about that. I'm not going to waste any more time with this. But as we can see in Midjourney here, we do get much more detailed prompts. And if I'm going to be honest, I spend a lot of time for other reasons making prompts that include a ridiculous amount of wizards. And you can see that as I go through, let me take a look at one of these here. And you can see how much detail this does go through. Okay, so let me stop at this point and take any suggestions if someone wants to see an image generated with Midjourney. If you've never used Midjourney before, I'm happy to do that. And we can also talk about other AI text to image generators that might be appropriate in a public library scene.
Okay, so first I have one question in the queue, and that
Sure.
is says you mentioned that you include the date and prompt for AI generated images to avoid copyright issues. However, are there any concerns on how the various AI image tools scraped artist created work in order to function? The last I heard, there were some lawsuits around this issue. Could the result of any lawsuits have implications for any images libraries generated and used using those services?
You know what? We won't know things like this until the actual litigation happens. At this point, to the best of my knowledge, the various lawsuits that have been put into place have not gained much traction. And we are also seeing major copyright violations by, for instance, Facebook. The news broke that they used how many terabytes of copyrighted books that they torrented into their system for the training purposes. So again, we're really not going to know until they have been litigated.
All right, that's the only question in the queue right
Okay.
now. So
Excellent.
you're free to go.
Okay. So one thing that I do enjoy with Midjourney is that you can explore and see what other people have done. And a great thing about this is you can find an image that you find appealing. So for instance, take a look at all these little tiny, this little tiny image here, and you can take their prompt and you can say, Oh, you know what? I would really love to see assembling a plate of fettuccine pasta, but you know what? I really want to see them assemble a um, strawberry pie. And I may have to instead of pouring the rich or using a crane to place the strawberries. Ensuring that I'll say every berry is perfectly placed. And I'm gonna just kind of one and enhances the, I'll just say pie to make it simple. We'll take out the with fresh basil. Okay, here we go. And why do I do this? It teaches me. I am able to learn something new, use my imagination in a way that I would never have thought of myself, and see how it turns out. Well, that's adorable. Okay, so if I were doing this in a public library setting, first of all, if I were doing this for any type of events, I would of course make sure that I do grab this prompt and I'd make sure that I do cite it appropriately. The next thing I'd talk about is if you're doing this with children, obviously it gets a little bit more difficult with age restrictions. And you want to think about services that don't require so many logins, or if you're doing it with teenagers, maybe use logins that are, more in line with what they already have. So I might take a look at Bing Image Creator or the image creator through Google's Gemini service. Okay, any questions about this before we move on? Excellent. All right.
Yep, no questions in the queue.
Fantastic. So let's talk just a moment here about coding assistance. So one thing, all the major chatbots will be able to provide coding assistance. But there's a new site out called Lashat from Mistral AI that's causing a little bit of a buzz by its really speedy response. So let's take a look at a request for an additional code for a library directory. So a little bit of a backstory here. When I learned how to code with PHP and SQL all those years ago, it took me like a month to figure out what I was doing. I don't have any true coding experience, and I had to kind of teach myself. So now I'm a little bit impressed by how quickly we can get answers. So for instance, I'm going to ask for a little bit of a help for the library directory. I'm going to add in some a search by librarian name. Now, Lashat is a conversation about whether or not it's actually better than any of the other chatbots, but I will say it is really, really quick. So take a look at this. And we have the information right here. This kind of blew me away when I saw it the first time. I have not tested it, but based on what I'm looking at, it seems pretty solid. So lots of different websites, lots of different opportunities for a lot of different help with different chatbots. We're going to see a little bit more of code as we progress through this as well. Okay, let's jump back to a little bit of fun. Music generation. AI can help librarians get even more creative with music creation. Given copyright restrictions, especially related to public performances, librarians looking to get creative with music might want to try writing their own. So this is popular using a popular song and music generator tool called Suno.com. But first, before we make the music, let's ask the chatbot to write a little bit of a storytime jingle for us and set it to music. So the prompt that I'm going to use is asking if ChatGPT or someone or something can create a fun set of lyrics appropriate for a children's story time? Well, let's find out. Let's head over to Claude. Why not? All right. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to take this information right here. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to go to suno.com. I'm going to create, and I am going to keep it with custom because I want to add my own lyrics. I'll paste that in. I don't know if I necessarily have to remove the verse 1 and the chorus, but I'm going to anyway. I don't know for sure if that's going to work, but go ahead and create. And while some of these have been a lot of fun, especially the sea shanties or Gregorian chants, some of them just turn out absolutely hideous. So your results might vary just a little bit. And typically this just takes a moment to finish. All right, so let's take a look and see what it came up with. And for some reason it is not.
In the library on a sunny day, books and stories show us the way when we share with friends both old.
Okay, was everyone hopefully able to hear that?
And new joy grows.
Oops. Okay. Nonetheless, you can have some enormous fun with music generation. Now, we're going to switch from the fun and entertaining, and we're going to take a look over into knowledge bases. And I have to admit, this is what gets me incredibly excited about AI in the world of libraries. So what we're going to look at here is Google's Notebook LM. Now, it's not just Google LM that will allow you to create your own knowledge base. We can also do so in OpenAI's custom GPTs. But nonetheless, both of them show some really interesting potential for libraries and archives. So Google LM is a service from Google, Notebook LM is a service from Google. It allows users to upload up to 50 documents, audio files, and text into a single notebook. This notebook becomes a bit of a knowledge base. Because it's built on a large language model, Google's Gemini in this case, you can ask questions specific to your data, and the LLM can reason out what you're looking for. So in this particular instance, we're going to take a look and see how Notebook LM handles queries related to town report warrant article data. So a little bit of background, years and years ago, I had created a searchable database of the town warrant articles in my really tiny town. And I scraped that data out of that old decrepit falling apart database, and I uploaded it into Notebook LM. And I only had up to like 2010. So I ended up uploading full town reports, and I live in a small town. So our town reports are a manageable, less than 100 pages, and uploaded those as well. So let's take a look at Google LM, and hopefully you'll see why I'm so excited about what this could do for us. As this loads, let me grab the prompt. Okay, so I've got a number of notebooks here, and the one I'm going to look at is warrant articles. I'm able to ask it for warrant articles about the library that reference New Hampshire state statute, and I explained that Those in New Hampshire are starting with RSA 202. And what I like about this, probably more than ChatGPT, GPTs, is that when I put my mouse over the 4, for instance, I can actually see anything that relates to 202. Okay, here we go. And yep, anticipated money from the state, federal government, da, da, da. And sure enough, that's exactly as written. It didn't fabricate anything. It didn't hallucinate anything. This is my data that I put in. And same thing with this one here. I can come through and very quickly see. I think I have a typo here, but that's okay. To see if the town will vote to adopt provisions, library trustees accept gifts of personal property. To give another example of this, I'm going to back out of the warrant article. I'm going to tell you a story about sitting at a co-op meeting. So I was at a co-op meeting, and the librarian says, yeah, we have the second library in town. It was kind of brought in the 1950s. It was a private library, became part of our public library, and we don't know much about it. And I said, well, what did the town report say? So I quickly downloaded and then uploaded the town reports from the late 1950s, and very quickly just asked it, please find information about the library. And my apologies, but the name of that library has an interesting spelling, and I don't think I'd ever get it right. So I kind of did a general search here. And this is actually what it is, a Batchelder Library. To know that I have it, I can say, that'll be a little bit more specific to that one. And so the nice thing is, it brings up everything related to that library. So what does this mean? It means that we are able to create a knowledge base of very specific information and dig into that data without hallucination. And I'm going to pause there because I think this is a huge deal. Are there any thoughts, any questions?
I don't see any, Bobby.
Okay, just checking. All right. So I can imagine a time when these knowledge base or this large language model capability is brought into our various digital archives, and I can only imagine what it will be able to do. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is how AI can be helpful for our historical documents and materials. So let's talk about transcription a little bit. So nearly every region of the country has a wealth of data locked into handwritten text that can be time-consuming to read, decipher, transcribe, and organize. But, and this is a big but if the handwriting is legible, a chatbot can summarize, analyze, transcribe, and even organize the data in a fraction of the time that it would take a person. So let's take a look at this in real time. I'm going to head back over to Claude. Let's start a new chat. And let me steal my prompt here. In this case, I just wanted to summarize information. So this handwritten document that I'm going to upload, it's just a photograph I took with my cell phone. And it is the handwritten information that came from our town reports from the town I live in. And I'm going to ask it to summarize the page instead of reading through everything myself. Ooh, all right. Well, that is a juicy one. Maybe I wanted to learn more. Now I'm going to ask, can you transcribe it? And who said old town records were boring? So probably about a year ago, I actually did a comparison of how ChatGPT, like what it got right and what it got wrong as far as this transcribing the handwritten text. And at the time, it was there were a few items that it didn't get right, but not bad. And I can imagine now, a year later, if I were to do the same analysis, I would see that that it does a fairly good job at reading this. Now, to do it is possible to do even more. So at this point, I'm going to switch back over to ChatGPT, and I'm going to upload. Let's see here, a page of vital records. So this is also from the town reports, but it most likely contains birth or marriage records. So I'm going to say, can you, I'll say transcribe this page. Now, of course, this O1 model does some reasoning, hence the delay. It's actually built into delay, and give it time to think and reason. And hopefully get to it soon. Well, I may have Claude do this for me. Let's try this one more time. Okay, so there's a little bit of a, all right, daughter to dinner. All right, so I don't have as much, pardon me, I think I need to pick a different one. Let me grab one of these here. I really do have a rhyme for my, for what I'm doing here. Okay, perfect. So it looks like here we have some birth records. All right, at this point I can say, can you create a table of the birth records? And I'm going to want to include let's see what happens here. This is a kind of weak prompt. Certainly I'm not getting into too much detail, but now we have a table. Now here's the thing, is it perfect? It might not be. You may have to review it, make sure that you are, you don't have any typos, that things haven't been omitted or just frankly messed up. But as someone who went through and kind of grabbed all of the birth records from our town reports years and years ago by hand, because OCR just did not do a great job with it, this seems like a miracle for taking data out of handwritten records. And then the other thing I want to show, I've got a few other things, but I'll stop. If you do have anything that you want to ask about, please let me know.
Yeah, Bobby, there's a few questions here that built up.
Sure.
So I'll go through them one by one. The
Sure.
first question is, AI has a lot of climate implications. So how is it worth it when most of these things we have been doing ourselves and can continue to do easily, especially without having to worry about the net negative when you take into account how AI is taught and the fact that no one training it usually cares about the copyright of the original.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm going to talk about AI ethics at the end. I'm happy to do so. So maybe we can concentrate on that
table
towards
that.
the end. Yeah.
Yeah, we can table that until the end. So, yeah, that'll be addressed then. The next question is, what are the pros and cons of Gemini versus Claude versus ChatGPT? Is there like a rubric that gives the pluses and minuses of each
Yeah,
one?
if you sure, if you look through the various articles that are written, you know, they go through and they test different skills or different tasks for each one of them. Some perform a little bit better in one, less in the other. In all honesty, I think it comes down to personal preference and what you're willing, if you're willing to pay for something. So, for instance, Claude AI is a free subscription for me. I don't pay anything extra to it. I did pay extra in for ChatGPT. I'm not sure how much longer I'll pay for it, simply because I don't know if it's worth it anymore. But in the beginning, it felt like it was, especially for someone in my position. But I think it honestly just depends on what you want to use. That said, I did not I did not make an account for DeepSeek. I didn't try it. It wasn't something that I wished to do, simply due to the country of origin, put it that way. I'd rather stay with American companies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, and next question, do 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 the docs you upload to this become the property of Google? We'd have to be wary about uploading docs that we don't hold copyright on.
Yeah, for each one of these services, you are going to see a terms of service. So for instance, when I signed up for the Google LM, they said that it was not going to be used for training purposes, but things would be evaluated for the content would be evaluated to make sure that it abides by the terms of service. So you can read that how you want. But in these cases, these early birth records, for instance, and town reports are all public information.
Okay. And the last question in the queue says, can you scrape a specific set of items from Internet Archive into Notebook LM? We're doing a big digitization project and would love to turn AI loose on a collection.
Yeah, it probably depends on what it is. I mean, if it's from Internet Archive, if it's text, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's all that's in the
Great.
queue for right now.
Okay, great. Okay, so the next thing I want to jump into is metadata creation, the glamorous world of metadata creation, right? Let's face it, creating metadata for digital collections is so time consuming, but AI can help speed up the process. It's not a perfect solution, but let's see what it looks like to give ChatGPT some photographs, the metadata standards, and a specific prompt and watch to see how it can help to create the metadata. But do note that this is not the final product. Okay, so while this looks messy, the metadata prompt actually came as a scrape basically from a table, and therefore to our visual eyes it looks like a big mess. But to AI it looks fairly good. I'm going to start a new chat again, and I'm going to explain to AI that I'm a public librarian working on a digitization project, and I want it to view the following photo and use as much information as it can retrieve from the photo, and also what's written on the back of the photo, and provide the metadata information for me. So that's my prompt, and I'm going to attach a couple of images. All right. And let's see what it comes up with. No, great. So there's some things that I need to clean up. But that is probably better than I would have done. Oh, and I'm out of free messages until 2 until 2 p.m. Sorry, AI. Okay. If I wanted to, however, I could have posted another message basically saying, can you transpose that table and then continue to add on additional images and then combine all of the metadata into one single downloadable Excel document or Excel file. So pretty handy for metadata, especially for descriptions. So if I come on over here to ChatGPT, by the way, it actually reasoned for 59 seconds. Wow. Okay. I'm going to start a new chat. And in this case, I'm just going to ask AI. Let's see if I can find my prompt here. I don't think I have one, but I'm going to pop over here for 1 second and just say, my fingers are gone now. All right, so I'm asking, can you determine the time period of this historical photo? And this is something I think many of us struggle with when we're looking at older images, and it does a little bit of reasoning, and we'll see if it comes back to this. Okay. Let me instead pop back over while it's reasoning and make sure that I can handle a few other things. Data analysis. My luck has varied quite a bit with this. In some instances, I found it incredibly helpful with spreadsheets, and sometimes it is absolutely just fizzles out. So I won't do too much with this because I do want to talk a little bit about the chatbot versus agent. So whereas the chatbot can write a letter, explain a concept, or even write code, the agent is an active entity, perceiving the world, making decisions, and taking actions to achieve its goals. So a couple of things that the AI has done recently, OpenAI has done recently, is it released Task. Task is part of its $20 a month subscription for online reminders. I have, for instance, requested that the chatbot send me 3 new Italian words every day. So admittedly, this is a pretty simple agent, but AI's true agent, or OpenAI's true agent, is Operator. So it is part of their professional $200 a month subscription. So I have not actually seen it, but it can actually do web-based tasks for you. If you have any interest in this, I do recommend taking a look at their video from OpenAI. But effectively, the agent takes screenshots of the web pages and can navigate the websites with a mouse and keyboard to perform tasks. However, I used my first coding agent recently, and I was a little bit shocked at how much it can do for a simple coding project. The agent is called Replit, and we can take a look at how it built a library directory for me and was able, it even attempted, it attempted to go out to the web unprompted to gather contact information for the New Hampshire Public Libraries. So I'm going to take a look really quickly here at Replit, and I bet it went back to sleep. Let me just see here. I haven't actually published this, so it needs to just run for a second here. Let's see if I can get it to up and run. But basically, through a chat with Replit, I said what I wanted to do. It confirmed with me, and then it started building. And then it started going out and finding information. And then I said, hey, can I just give you a CSV file? This is public information about just contact information for the libraries, something that's already on the web. And it, I have to spell correctly. And it built this really easy little library directory in absolutely no time at all. And that is my first experience with an agent, and it was interesting. Okay, I know that we are running out of time, and let me just jump into the stuff that we might really also want to talk about. First of all, we can expect innovation with these AI tools. We have some interesting folks who are building interesting sites without a lot of coding knowledge. But let's talk about AI out there. Yeah, there are a lot of reasons to be concerned about AI. And I want to jump back and just say the reason why I talk about AI, yes, it is a new technology that, frankly, as a technology librarian, I cannot ignore. But also, it is my hope that as librarians, we reach people. So, but let's talk about this. There are enormous environmental implications for fresh water and electrical demands required by these data centers. There are enormous privacy concerns with seeing so much data being stored by these large AI companies and all the risks that come with it. We have copyrighted books and artwork that have been used to train these AI models without compensation or attribution to the authors and artists. And to top it off, AI technologies will have the power to monitor the digital and physical actions of everyone. Now, what can we do? While I respect that some librarians refuse to use AI, I get it. I do urge librarians to take another approach. I feel that educating our populations on all aspects of AI is the best action we can take. Give public presentations, talk about AI to people. What I said to New Hampshire librarians is, with our 400 legislators, you just never know who you are going to reach and what type of legal protections could come from that. And then finally, AI policy. And here's the thing, with everything AI systems can already do, and with so much unknown, there's a lot to consider with AI policy in public libraries. It goes without saying that we want any AI systems used by the library to protect patron data. We want staff to require staff to undergo training specific to AI. But I also suggest we bring this to a deeper level. We want to ensure that while staff can use AI analysis for collection development, we don't want AI to be making all these decisions. And this becomes even more important as library collections continue to move into the digital world. So for instance, we wouldn't want algorithms of a third-party vendor creating orders for our digital content, especially since these AI algorithms are often opaque even to the developers themselves. And let's consider things like hiring tools that rely on AI to make decisions on which candidates are best for the job. These tools could have their own unknown biases and could excode or digitally exclude excellent candidates without your knowledge. And finally, let's take a moment to consider things like video surveillance. You know, at this time, consumer video surveillance is often cloud-based and sophisticated enough to capture movement and recognize faces. And between all this video that's being used in homes and businesses and your community, people are under a lot of surveillance. And you have the ability to give people a place where they're not subjected to constant surveillance and where they might enjoy a little bit of, I say, societal privacy. Yeah, and I'm sure there's some comments here. So let's, what questions do we have?
So, we don't have any questions in the Q&A right now. Michelle, did you want to say
I'll
something?
give everybody just a second. And I want to thank Bobby for coming on this morning and giving a wonderful presentation. Bobby, I think that we should create some kind of bravery award for you or any librarian that, I mean, you know, you're coming on here and you're demoing an hour presentation live, going back and forth, which is terrifying to me personally, but very brave of you. And so
Thanks.
thank you very much for willing to come here for our new directors. I hope everybody out there found something really useful in Bobby's presentation. I liked it because I thought it gave some kind of practical tools for you to use. I hope that it was, I always try to keep usefulness in mind when selecting presenters and topics. And then within those topics, finding something that all libraries can use, especially the small to mid-sized ones, especially people that might have a small team at their library. So I hope there was something in Bobby's presentation that excited you, that you felt would be beneficial for your library, that you want to have some fun with and play around with, or it could be useful for other teams in your libraries, like I mentioned earlier on. Or first thing was the youth services librarian. So Bobby, thank you so much for this morning. I think, Bob, is there a something in the Q&A before I
Yeah.
send it off to the next?
Well, I don't know what this is that got
I-
posted in the Q&A here, but it may have been I don't know what it is. That doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about right now. But
Hey, I
we
wanted
did-
to say really quickly that someone asked what the final question or final date was on that. And it was from the late 30s and early 40s. I just can't paste it into the chat for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bobby, I know there's something in the chat. Someone
Yeah.
mentioned, they hope that we could have future more in-depth presentations from you in the future, and that they would be really interested, and probably other people would be too. So Bob and Jen Brenner, you can take your notes right there
Mhm.
and contact Bobby as you go forward and think about doing director training, trustee training, maybe doing it jointly together, and inviting Bobby back for maybe even a little 2 or 3 sessions of webinars on this. So Bobby, keep that in the back of your head. I think people are
Thanks.
very interested.
Thanks. I was just going to say, I was going to say, if you go to our New Hampshire State Library LibGuides, you'll see a section on emerging technology, and I've got a link to all the Google Docs. I do all sorts of mini online tutorials, and you can just go in there and learn about just a little tiny topic. So,
Speaking about potentially tiny topics, there's one question that I saw in the chat, should have be put in the Q&A. That's one demerit. That says, where do you suggest a small library starts with AI, either to educate our staff or our patrons?
yeah, in all honesty, using it. I mean, I understand the environmental and other concerns. I really do, but it is my humble opinion that this is the biggest and riskiest technology thing that has come to humans. And if we're information professionals, we need to use it. Start with free services, start with Claude AI or ChatGPT, play around with some image generation that's free through Bing, and just continue to explore. That's probably my best advice. But take a look at our LibGuides. I've got a whole bunch of various little tiny things that originally were just emails that I sent out to the listserv, and I just kind of cleaned it up and made some of them into little tutorials. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to pass those along too. Everything's quite informal here in New Hampshire, so nothing too big or fancy.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank
And
you.
Yeah.
you should have her contact information. And if you can't find it, she's listed on the New Hampshire State Library website. So Bobby, thanks again for joining us
Thank
on
you.
this snowy day. And so I hope that we have you back in the future. And I really appreciate the time, the presentations that you've done for us, both in the past and today. Taking time out of your day and coming to our state virtually to present. So have a good one. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You're
Bye
welcome.
now. Okay, well, that was a lot to take in, and luckily you're going to have a link to the recording, so you could rewatch this as much as you would like to. But now we're going to be moving on to our next presentation, which features our own Bob Keith on a presentation
Hey.
on library law. And I know you all know Bob as the director of library law, per capita state aid, and statistics. And he's our resident expert on this topic. And so, Bob, I'll give it over to you. I know there'll probably be lots of questions. So do you want to monitor the Q&A on your own, or would you like me to interrupt you?
I will try.
right.
That's always a big juggling act, to try to monitor everything and present and do all that stuff.
Keep an eye out for you, Bob.
Yeah, just a couple extra eyes might not be a bad thing. So,
No.
yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. You muted yourself, but that's okay. Anyway, hello, everyone. I am Bob Keith. I am the Director of Library Law, State Aid, and Statistics at the New Jersey State Library. And I am going to be talking with you about library law and specifically where to find the law. I as the next slide says, I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV or anywhere else. So the information presented herein is presented for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice or opinion. And once you have digested all of the information in this presentation, I wholeheartedly suggest that you bring this to your attorney if you have one and ask for their legal advice, and then follow what advice they give you. Before I go on, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge two people that that have been really huge in libraries and in my life, my career, and things like that. And that the first person I want to acknowledge is Michael Cerrone, the library law attorney that most of you probably know, either personally or by reputation or things like that. Michael is still around, but he is experiencing his well-deserved retirement at this point, and he no longer works with libraries. He does not do presentations on library law anymore. So I know I personally miss him. I love talking to him and wrangling around topics about, library law and kind of arcane different things about libraries. And so he will be missed, and we'll trying to fill his colossal shoes, but it's going to take some time, and we'll see where it goes. The second person is a little bit more sad, and this is another person that was really big in my career and worked with almost every month from the outset of COVID until fairly recently, and that is Pat Pavlak, the ex president of the New Jersey Library Trustee Association. Unfortunately, Pat passed away a few weeks ago, and I just wanted to acknowledge what a huge force she has been for libraries, for trustees, for directors as well, to take her time to volunteer with us and train directors, trustees, and other people in libraries about not just the law but other topics. She will be greatly missed. And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge both of them. So with that out of the way, let's discuss the path forward for today. So we're going to discuss some topics that are frequently asked about in library law. Where possible, I will actually have a citation to the statute that will be a link to the actual statute online. This presentation will definitely be made available to all attendees. It'll be posted on our website. So don't worry about copying anything down or anything like that. You'll be able to go in there and click through and get to the actual statutes and read them through yourself. Please, when you do get that, study the statutes and regulations. And then again, if you have an attorney, bring them to your attorney to discuss any questions you might have or anything like that. And we do also have a huge repository at this point of videos on YouTube about this and other topics related to libraries, and that is in our director and trustee training YouTube playlist. And so you can click on that when you get this presentation, and there are hundreds of hours of trainings there that you can look through about a wide variety of topics. So the first thing, we should begin at the beginning, and the beginning of public libraries is how they are formed, their structure, and what types of public libraries there are in the state. So we have 4 types of public libraries in New Jersey. We have municipal libraries. We have joint municipal libraries, where 2 or more municipalities have joined together to form a single municipal library. We have county libraries, and we have association libraries. And as you can see, the statutes that govern each type of library are there. And once again, you can click through when you get this to look at all of the statutes that govern those types of libraries and what they entail. But we're going to dive into a little bit of each one here as we go forward. So municipal and joint municipal library board membership. So municipal libraries and joint municipal libraries, actually most libraries are governed by a board. County library is a little bit different. They have a board of commissioners. Some just have advisory boards for county libraries, but municipal, joint municipal, and association libraries all have boards. For municipal and joint municipal board membership, we're looking at 40:54-9, and the composition of those boards is prescribed in that statute. There are 2 ex officio members of every municipal library board. There is the mayor and the superintendent of schools. Then there are between 5 to 7 citizens that are appointed by the mayor or other chief executive officer, often with the consent of the town council, which is what that asterisk is there. Except in the case of joint libraries where 3 citizens are appointed by the mayor of each member town. So each mayor gets half the board to appoint. There are some restrictions as far as who can be appointed to a municipal or joint municipal library board. This Attorney General's opinion, which again is linked on our website, basically discusses that members of a town council or employees of the municipality may not be appointed to the library board of trustees. And that is, Michael would have had a long explanation about this, but basically it's because they can't serve 2 masters. They can't serve the town and the library board and do it without any conflicts or anything like that. So that's what that Attorney General's opinion says. Other areas in the statute say that trustees must be citizens, and that is taken to be citizens of not just the United States, but also of the state in which they reside, such as New Jersey. And there is a residency requirement. So not all trustees need to be residents of the town that they that the library is in, but you can read that statute and it'll tell you exactly how many trustees need to be residents of the town. County Library Commission is discussed in 40:33-7, and the majority must be residents of towns supporting the county library. So in a county that has a county library, not all towns need to be members of the county library. They can have their own municipal libraries. They can just not decide to be part of the county. And so those residents need to be, those county library commissioners need to be residents of the towns that support the library. Makes sense that, you know, they're not from some other town. Association libraries are very different than municipal, joint municipal, and county libraries in that they are nonprofit corporations formed under Title 15A of the New Jersey statutes. They can also be federal nonprofits, although they don't necessarily have to be, although most are for tax purposes. And they function as libraries, but they are organized as nonprofits. And so their boards are a little bit different. The statutes that they're beholden to are a little bit different. However, under 40:54-35, it basically says that, you read it here, the governing body of any municipality may appropriate and raise such sum of money as in its judgment may be deemed necessary to aid libraries and reading rooms in serving any such municipality, whether such libraries or reading rooms be located in such municipality or in an adjoining municipality, provided the person or corporation owning or controlling any library and reading room receiving and accepting such aid shall keep the same open free to the use of the public at such reasonable hours as meets the approval of the governing body of such municipality. So that basically means that under, for association libraries, they don't get a minimum funding level from their municipality. They're not required to. However, the municipality can give them money, and they often do. And if they do, then the association library is beholden to, for lack of a better word, function as a library to, keep the library open and provide library services and things like that if they're getting those public funds. And again, if anybody has any questions about this while I'm going, or if I'm going too fast, please put a question in the Q&A. I actually have it up so I can see it, so I don't technically need anybody to monitor it. And I'll answer it as they come in. So the oath of office is a pretty big thing that new trustees or reappointed trustees need to take in order to officially be seated in the library board. And there are several statutes there that, again, you can read through yourself that talk about how the oath must be administered before assuming appointed office. New appointees must be administered the oath. One thing I get asked about a lot, and that we kind of is in the statutes that we had mentioned already, but I didn't want to pull it out because you can read through it yourself. But especially in municipal libraries, the mayor and superintendent, as I said, are ex officio members of the board. They are members of the board because of their office. They, in the statute, are able to designate an alternate to attend library board meetings in their stead and act in their stead, including voting. So when a mayor or superintendent appoints an alternate, and that alternate comes to the library board meeting, that alternate needs to be administered the oath of office just as an appointed board member would. And so if that alternate changes at any point for whatever reason, a new alternate that is appointed and goes to the board meeting would also need to be administered the oath before they could be seated and act as a board member. Let's see. Good morning. Can a mayor's alternate of a municipal library be an employee of the city? Good question. Give me 1 second. The answer to that is yes. So normally, as I had said before, appointed board members, because of the Attorney General's opinion that I had cited previously, are unable to be appointed members of the board. Any employee of the town, any member of council is not able to be an appointed member of the board. However, they can be, and often it is beneficial for them to be an alternate. The alternate for the mayor, the superintendent, is really the eyes and ears of the mayor, of the ex officio board member, the mayor, the superintendent at the board meeting. They report back to the person they're representing. The person they're representing can tell them how to vote on certain matters before the board. And in order to have that level of trust and that level of not camaraderie, but connection, it is often beneficial for them to be someone that is very close to the mayor. I've seen alternates be family members of the mayor, be members of council, employees of the town, the town clerk or something like that, and those are all permissible. So I hope that answers your question there. Okay, So, can I go forward? Yes, okay. So here are some other statutes about the organization of municipal libraries and municipal library boards of trustees. 40:54-11 discusses the organization of the board and the officers of the board. The officers in the statute are enumerated as a president, a treasurer, and a secretary. And I know there are a ton of municipal libraries out there in New Jersey that have a vice president. Technically, that is not in the statute. If you want to put that in your bylaws, there's nothing to prevent you from doing that. You do start to run the risk, especially in boards that are smaller, that have 7 total members, which means they would have 5 appointed members, that you suddenly run the risk of having everyone be an officer on the board, which is kind of a lot. So vacancies on the board are treated under 40:54-10. There's a definite way that vacancies are communicated to the mayor, and the mayor can then appoint someone to fill out the unexpired term of a trustee who left the board for whatever reason. Further statutes there discuss the treasurer and bonding that needs to happen for the treasurer, or technically anyone with such signing authority for depositing checks should probably also be bonded. That's something to discuss with your attorney to see if they agree on that. And 54-12 goes over the powers of the board, such as the ability to hire and fire employees, to fix their compensation, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot in there that you can read later on. And again, if you have any questions, even after this, please feel free to email me and we can discuss it. So how do libraries get their funding? Specifically, municipal library funding is covered under 40:54-8, and this is the library tax, or colloquially known as the 1/3 mill. And this is the minimum funding level that municipalities must provide to their municipal libraries each year in no fewer than quarterly payments. And it can be higher than that. The municipality can opt to give the library more money, and actually a lot of libraries do get additional funds from their municipality. The library tax, the 1/3 of the mill, is a dedicated line on the property tax bill for property owners in the town. And so that funding stream comes directly from the taxpayers and goes directly to the library. It is not part of the municipality's general fund. It is not subject to the budget cap or anything like that. However, additional funds that the town may want to give to the library, in addition to the 1/3 of the mill minimum, would come from the municipality's general fund and would be subject to the budget cap. There are actually some regulations. We've been dealing mostly with statutes now, but there are some regulations that discuss how the appropriation may be spent, such as there are eligible and ineligible costs. There are things that the library can definitely spend their money on and things that the library definitely cannot spend their money on. And those are enumerated in these administrative code regulations. Let's see. Okay. This is a big subject that hopefully most of you don't have to get into. Excuse me. It used to be a lot bigger and more active when it was first enacted in the middle 2000s. And it is the provision in the statute that I quoted that makes it so the library, if they have a certain amount of money in reserve, that they need to apply to the state library to return those funds to the municipality. There is, I'm not going to go through the actual statute right now. There's a lot of nuance to it and, you know, and how much money you need to do it. Suffice it to say, there is this packet for proposed return of taxpayer funds that is a zip file on our website with a number of documents inside of it. One of the documents in there is called the transfer calculation form. It's a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet that has a number of different lines where it asks you for various sums of money to enter into that. And once you enter in all of those sums of money, it auto calculates. And at the end, it will tell you if you have any money to return for that year. And this is usually looking at back at the previous year. So right now, libraries are probably gearing up to get their audits done. They're doing their per capita state aid survey and things like that. After those are done, usually that's when, if there are funds to be returned, those funds are identified, and then the library can start the application process to the state librarian for approval to return those funds to the municipality. Again, there's a lot to read through with that. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. Those application packets come to me, so I'm probably the best person to talk to about that. Excuse me. And I can answer any questions you would have about the nuts and bolts of how that application works. Okay, there's one other question here. Yeah, Jen Brenner mentioned that county libraries have a different, let's actually go back here. So municipal libraries are funded at 1/3 of a mil, which is basically multiply the equalized valuation of the town by 0.000 and then 6 threes, and that's your 1/3 of the mil minimum for that year. County libraries their minimum funding level is 1/15 of a mil. Now I'll say that I don't know, there are no county libraries that are at that level. There are some county libraries that are very well funded, some that are less well funded, but luckily none are at that 1/15 of a mil minimum. So thanks, Jen, for that clarification. And another question just came in. That might be why a city would opt out of the county system and go for higher local funding. Monmouth County kid, so always wondered. I mean, it's possible that might be. I think there's a lot of other reasons why a town would leave a county library and go with their own. But I'd be happy to discuss that with you offline if there's any other things that I can tell you about that might help. Okay, return of funds, we discussed that. I will say one other thing about return of funds. You have most of the year to apply for the ability to return funds. However, we reserve 45 days from the receipt of a complete application packet to render decision on your ability to return those funds and then give permission to return those funds. So if you come to us on Thanksgiving or just after Thanksgiving and say, here's our packet, we're probably going to say you're going to have to wait until next year because that's just not enough time with all the other stuff that we have to do to make that go through all of your stuff and make that determination. So try to get in a little bit earlier than that if you have to do it. Another big.
Bob, can
Yep.
I just add one thing, and you may
Yep.
have mentioned it, I'm sorry if I missed it.
okay.
As far as getting the 45 days and you get to the end of the year, you're saying there's not enough time. Keep in mind that the return of funds, the funds do not, are not categorized year by year. They all roll over into one account. So
Yes.
Say you don't get it finished by the end of the year, it almost doesn't matter because those funds are just gonna roll over and you can't separate by
Yes.
year. You can't say I had excess funds in 2023, but not in 2024. So
Correct.
it's like a rolling deadline and everything goes forward altogether.
Exactly. We've seen municipal CFOs try to do that, try to say, oh, well, you didn't apply in, the last year, so we need to apply for that year. No, everything is in the current year. Everything is in, like Michelle said, everything, if you have excess funds from last year and you didn't do the return, they have rolled over into this year, and unless you've spent them already, they're still there. So that's one good thing. There was something else when you were talking, Michelle, that time frame. My brain is Swiss cheese.
Strategic plan or anything like that, or
No, that's in the
Okay.
packet. And I'd rather have them read that themselves and then ask
only the
questions about
state
it.
librarian can approve a return of funds?
Yeah,
That's
that
fine.
I kind of already mentioned that. The, well, it probably not that important. And if I think about it, great. And if I don't, again, probably wasn't that important. Okay. One big statute that we deal with not very often, but occasionally is the Confidentiality of Library Records Act. And this is a statute or two statutes technically that discuss like I say here, library records which contain the names or other personally identifying details regarding the users of libraries are confidential and shall not be disclosed except in the following circumstances. A, the records are necessary for the proper operation of the library, such as looking to see if someone has a book out late and they need to be sent an overdue notice or something like that. That's one way that that happens. Disclosure is requested by the user, or disclosure is required pursuant to a subpoena issued by a court or court order. So this is something Michael used to get on this quite a bit. I'm not going to go as in depth as he did, but in order to divulge confidential library records of users, you would need to have one of those three criteria met. And make sure that that subpoena is legitimate, because not only would you be in violation of this statute if you gave those that information to the police without that subpoena, but more than likely that information would not be admissible in court because the statute wasn't followed. So you would actually be helping the police by helping them to follow the correct statute and get their information in the correct way. Another big thing is the Open Public Meetings Act. As directors, you were often called upon to, if not run board meetings, at least run them with the president of the board and kind of prepare all the packets and send out the notices of when the board is going to meet. This is handled under NJSA 10:4, and luckily, we still have on our YouTube channel a very in-depth video by Michael Cerrone about the Open Public Meetings Act. And so I wholeheartedly, when you get this slideshow, to click on that and watch that. He goes into depth with a lot of different kind of edge cases and things like that that you might want to know about. So it's that. And now something near and dear to my heart. It's in my title. It's what it says on the tin. It's per capita state aid. It's what we're all dealing with right now. We're right in the middle of state aid, and what better time to talk about it than now? So, excuse me. So the state aid application, is all libraries must apply for state aid, is an application packet that is composed of 3 parts. The annual survey, the application form, and the accuracy certification. Now, what are each of those? The annual survey, is, filled out by the director on the County Opinions website, which if you are actually a director, because I know there are a number of branch managers here, so this wouldn't really apply to you all that much. But if you're a director, you should have received your login information by now, for the County Opinions website to go in and complete the annual survey. If you didn't, please, as soon as we're done here, email me right away, because we got to get you that information, because the deadline is, always fast approaching. So the annual survey is filled out by the director on the County Opinions website. Login information is sent prior to the launch of the state aid application, which the launch is, usually in around the 2nd week of January. That's when the annual survey is opened up and the other forms that I mentioned are made available. The due date for all of it, for the annual survey, the application form, and the accuracy certification form, is March 15th. So going back down the page here, the accuracy certification is a PDF that is filled out by the director and emailed to the state library. There's an email on the form that you can send that in, and any supporting documentation depending upon your population, such as a list of your librarians and things like that. The application for state aid form is also a PDF, and that is sent to all municipal and county CFOs via the Division of Local Government Services newsletter that goes out monthly or more frequently to all municipal and county CFOs. That PDF must be filled out and signed by the municipal or county CFO along with their CFO certificate number. And then they must send that PDF not only to me at the state library, but also to you as a director, because some of that information on there you will need to complete your survey. If you don't receive it from them in a timely manner, feel free to call them and get them to do it. If they are being a little intransigent, and as they sometimes are, please give me a call and I will call them and have a discussion with them. All the forms, instructions, and the blank survey are available on the state library website, and you can click through on that link to go to the per capita state aid webpage and find all of those forms to download and things like that. The annual survey login information should have been sent to you in a separate email. Again, if you didn't get it, send me an email. If for some reason you're running late and you think you might not make the March 15th deadline, please email me and I will send you a form to request an extension from the state librarian to the filing deadline. It's totally up to the state librarian whether to grant that or not. And if you grant that, there will be additional time given to you to complete that the application. However, on March 15th, if no extension request has been received and any part of the application annual survey, the 2 forms are incomplete or late, it may result in loss of your state aid. If you have any questions about state aid, please email me sooner rather than later, so we can get any issues you have straightened out and get you, get the application done as quickly and smoothly as possible. All right, this is normally where I would ask for questions, as the slide says, but there's no questions in the Q&A. I don't know about this, Michelle.
That's highly unusual.
Yeah, either I did a really bad job or I did an okay job.
No,
Um,
either bad or really great.
Yeah. This presentation will be on YouTube. This entire thing from 9 o'clock until we end at 12:30, I think, is going to be one giant video on our YouTube channel. So that's going to take a little bit of time for me to edit and post and things like that. So it might not get there until Friday or Monday. We shall see. But I'll get it up there as soon as I can.
I do
Oh.
want to let people know that, as you mentioned earlier, we have a New Jersey State Library YouTube channel, and we have hundreds of hours of trustee and director training on there, and you will find many videos that pertaining to library law. So not only in addition to Bob's questions or Bob's presentation here today, please make sure that you visit the YouTube channel for more information. And as always, Bob will take your questions via email or phone call. Sometimes, some of the questions that we have gotten asked in the past require, very in-depth answers. And that's where I think, rather than writing like a 2-page email, a phone call to Bob is often much better. And I used to get those phone calls too, but Bob is really, really the expert. But just in my experience, there's
I put my cell phone number up there.
Yeah, you put your cell phone number, quick, take it.
Oh, that was force of habit.
Yeah.
Don't call my cell phone.
Yeah, don't call Bob's cell phone. But I just, in both of our experiences, sometimes when a question is asked about the law or where to find things, it's often you need to sort of talk a little bit to really parse it out to find out what it is that you want to know. And then to give you the correct information. So that's where sometimes a phone call is better rather than us or Bob, and if you answering the email and then not getting the information you need. So this is Bob's job, and he's happy to do it, and he's great at it. So if you don't want to email, send him, give him a call. And sometimes he'll get an email and he'll just decide to give you a call so he can get further clarification, right, Bob?
Exactly. Now I'm trying to find, I lost some stuff here. Give me one quick
See how
second.
quickly he changed that slide so y'all don't have his cell phone number?
Don't call my cell phone.
I would like to also say that over the years that we are particularly attentive to library directors and trustees who email us or call us with questions, because sometimes we know that you need to answer quickly. Sometimes, it's happened where I'm going to a board meeting tonight, or I'm going before my municipality tonight, and I need to have the correct information. So I think, just thinking back over the past of, all the emails we get about a variety of topics, it's something that the state library and now Bob, we pay attention to it. So, I know that Bob, I don't want to say this really, but I know that Bob will be looking at his email off hours just in case there's some kind of emergency like that comes
I
up.
always do.
Yeah, and I always did too.
My
but
wife tells me not to, but I still do.
Well, we want you to know that we understand that some of these things you need an answer right away. So that is something that Bob pays particular attention to get back to you as immediately as he can.
Okay, so thank you very much, Michelle. I just have 2 really quick questions before my time is up here. Actually 3. There's a new acting director for Bridgeton, and they never received their login information. How do you get it? You email me at the email address on the screen there. My phone number there only has 17 in it. I'm sorry, I was typing fast and I don't want to go in and fix it right now, so I'll fix it later. So yeah, Michelle, email me at that email address and I'll get you set up and you can start doing the annual survey. Next question is, as an association library, would I reach out to my town CFO for the accuracy certification? No, you would reach out to your town CFO with the application for state aid form. The accuracy certification is filled out by you and your board president. And that's basically, it does what it says. You're certifying that everything you put into the annual survey is accurate to the best of your knowledge, and you're not you know, doing bad things. So yeah, the application for state aid goes to the CFO and then they send it back to you and me. And then once it's filled out and the accuracy certification is sent to, there's an email address on the form. My assistant Sahar tabulates and collates all those, and you can email that to her. And then the last question is, what happens if the state audit finds negative findings? Well, there's really no state audit. There's individual audits. Each library must have an audit done each year. And that's, basically like a local matter. And if they have negative findings, that's something to discuss with your auditor about what that means and what you have to do going forward. So with that, I think that's it. Right? 11 o'clock? You're muted. You're muted. There you go.
So yeah, thanks, Bob. I just want to also say that, when you call or email, that Bob holds all conversations confidential. So
Everything.
you don't have to worry about being completely open and honest with the things that you need to know. So Bob, thanks so much for your presentation. And now we're going to take
welcome.
a 15-minute break from 11 to 11:15, and we will be back here shortly for a presentation about working with your trustees, done by the two Pats. So see you in 15 minutes, everyone.
Hello.
Hello again. Hi there.
That was
How's
great,
everything?
Bob.
Oh, it's very good.
Thank you.
Very good, Bob.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank
Love
you.
the way you had the slides done. Great.
Thank
Great.
you very much.
No, it was very good.
Yep, excellent.
I
Now,
I
how
wish I
do
could
these
be more
slides-
in depth.
who's forwarding the slides? What are we doing here?
You could
No,
send
no.
them all to me and I will get them posted on the website and then send them out to
I mean, no,
everybody.
for this presentation, you said.
No, Bob is.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
person-
you sent me the things. I'm
did.
sorry, I thought it was something else.
And then if we want to advance the slides, we just press whatever. What? I'm just-
No, I don't think we can. I think he has to. Bob does.
All right, that's what I
Well,
know. He has
Yeah, I
to.
mean, you guys sent me the
Presentation.
oh, I have access denied
What?
on Google Slides.
Oh, give me a break. Come on. Are you serious?
Can you guys bring it up and then Bob will, can you put up your presentation, share your screen, and then Bob will, let you turn it over to you to advance?
Let's see.
He could also, as he's there in the background, he could also help you with the, telling you what to do if you're having.
Okay.
So-
Actually, I was able to share it. This is a miracle.
Okay,
There
so
you go.
now you want to
Yeah.
make it so it's full screen. And Bob can tell you how to do that. There you, hey,
There you go.
Pat,
Is that it?
And then
that's it,
yeah,
Pat.
and then you can use the
You
arrow
go.
keys to the arrow keys on your keyboard to advance it or go backwards.
What do you mean?
Like, try it.
Okay, I'm just, oh, down on the bottom. Okay, I think I can do that. All right.
Okay, hold on. And I'll see if I can.
Might want to designate one of you to do it, so maybe. if-
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll
Yeah.
do it.
That's great. And again, Bob is there. If you just get stuck, just say, hey, Bob, what do I press?
Yep. Do you want me to interrupt you with questions or do you want to take questions at the end?
Oh, no. Please interrupt me at any time because I'm really feeling now looking at this screen, I'm really feeling just like Bobby said, like, ooh, wait a minute now. I'm speaking into the void.
You're gonna,
But yes.
yeah, you're gonna be great.
Yep.
So let's all reconvene since it's 11:16 and welcome
Okay.
everyone back.
Ready to roll.
So thanks for being here again after the break, everyone. And we're going to now have a presentation on how to work with your library board, which can, hopefully be a wonderful experience for you. I mean, I was a library director myself and I did have a great board, but sometimes, things arise. So we have the two trustee experts here to tell you best practices for working with your library board. And so again, I'm bringing on and introducing Pat Massey, who is the president of the New Jersey Library Trustee Association, and Pat Tumulty, who knows everything about everything that has to do with libraries, trustees, and directors, who works consulting with NJLTA. And then I'm just going to make a pitch right here. They may want to do so themselves or make some announcements. But I highly encourage you to sign your board up for a membership in NJLTA. It's very inexpensive. You'll get their newsletter. You can check their website, and you will get also notifications, or your board will, on any trainings that they're presenting. And they're also here to help your library board with any questions that they may have. So, so to the two Pats, thank you for being here again. Always look forward to your presentation. And at this point, I'm turning it over to you. And thanks so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. Actually, this is the first time I am presenting with Pat Tumulty on for new directors. So full disclosure, I am not a director. I have never been a director. I am a librarian. I've been a school librarian for many, many years and a trustee for many, many years. So I hope you find this helpful. And Michelle, thank you for the plug for the New Jersey Library Trustee Association membership. It is really, really important, and I was going to mention it later on. I also want to sort of reiterate what Bob Keith had said before about recognizing Pat Pavlak, who is the former president who was the former president of NJLTA. And really, I always thought of her as a rock star. And it's amazing and sort of difficult to be in her shoes or trying to fill her shoes. I'd also like to thank Michelle for all of her years of being and working with the trustees. And I look forward to working with Jen Brenner, so that will be great. So I hope you enjoy this and get something out of this presentation on you and your library board working together. Now, you know that the library board is appointed, and depending, as Bob had said, about the different types of library boards, oftentimes it's the mayor who appoints a library board trustee. And you have to work together. And when the partnership works well, it's a beautiful thing and the library benefits. When it doesn't, when it's a bit strained, the library does suffer. So how can you ensure that the partnership between the library director and the library board is healthy? Well, let's see what we can talk about. The keys to this success, we're going to call these the 3 Cs: to collaborate, communicate, and to cultivate. Now, collaborate, you're going to work together, and you're really going to work together for the good of the library and the community. It's important that you collaborate. You may not like all of your trustees. Maybe there's a trustee or two who doesn't like you, but you really have to think of the library, the greater good, the library and the community. You want to communicate. You want to make sure the trustees understand, know what it is that they need to know. You need to provide and exchange information. And then cultivate, you want to cultivate through respect and mutual support. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now we have the responsibilities of the library board. And you know that the library board is a legal public institution. It's charged to make sure that there's adequate funding for the library. You want to make sure that you work on the budget together and that the board understands the budget. You want to make sure that there are policies, and the director really needs to communicate with the board members what policies are needed. And sometimes you can create policies, but it's also very, very important to review these policies on an ongoing basis. Very important, you want to make sure to have a short and long-term strategic plan for the library. And also to have bylaws that are going to govern how the board operates. Usually meetings are follow Robert's rules as a guideline. They should be professional and they should operate with respect. And other than the fiduciary responsibility is that the board hires and evaluates the library director. And I'm going to say, since I feel like I'm going to reiterate what Bobby had said also, I feel like I'm talking into the void. So Pat T, if you want to jump in at any time, just go ahead. And otherwise, Bob, if there are any questions or whatever, please let me know.
Yep, I'm keeping an eye on them.
Okay, so the responsibilities of library trustees. It's interesting. You know, you can have trustees who are very, very interested in the library. You don't have to, obviously, you all know, you don't have to be a librarian to be a trustee. You don't even have to be an active library user. You should be, hopefully, but not necessarily. It doesn't always happen. But your first loyalty has to be to the library and to the community it serves as a trustee. And hopefully you as a director will hold an orientation soon after any trustee is appointed to the board. It's important to take that time to meet with the trustee, and it's important for the trustee to take that time to meet with you. The trustee needs to support the library and the library director. As I mentioned before, maybe there's a trustee who doesn't really care for you at all as the library director, but they need to support the library and you as the director. The trustee also needs to give the time that it takes to serve on the board. You need to review materials before the meeting. Don't show up at the meeting and you haven't looked at the bill list or anything like that. You as the director needs to get the board packet out in a timely manner so that the trustees have time to review the items that they need. Hopefully the trustee will volunteer to serve on a committee. That's also very, very important. And to contribute to decision making. There could be a lot of discussion, particularly in committee meetings. There could be a lot of discussion. But once business is conducted publicly, because obviously you can't vote on anything in committee or outside of the committee, and you've got to be really careful that trustees don't meet, that there's not more, you can't meet as a quorum. So everything the business needs to be conducted publicly. And most importantly, the trustees need to accept a board decision. Sometimes that's difficult, but it's important that the board accept the decisions that are made as a body. Another thing is to complete continuing education annually and to share with the board. Now, you should be aware, and I'm sure you are aware, that the New Jersey library laws, the regulations are under review at this time. And we really have asked that the continuing education component be changed to to require professional development for every trustee, not 7 hours total for a board, but that each trustee has to complete, hopefully, like 2 hours of professional development. It's important. And it will eliminate that issue where maybe there's one trustee on the board who is doing the professional development or putting in the professional development hours for everyone. And the other important responsibility is that the trustee promotes the library within the community. So that is also very important. Now we get to the responsibilities of the library director, and I think, Pat, you were going to take this on.
Yes, that's right, Pat. You are the library director, and what's really most important is that you establish this collaboration between yourself as the director with the board and each trustee that's on the board. As Pat said, we sometimes have personality conflicts, but they have to be kind of overridden, and you can kind of work with each trustee to make sure that they can give their full responsibility to the library. So your job is to make sure that the library board understands its legal responsibilities. And I think Bob did an excellent job in showing you where you can find those legal responsibilities. There are many of those fiscal responsibilities. There's certainly responsibilities in terms of supervision. There's terms of a whole variety of things that the library board is responsible for. So you need to help them understand their responsibilities. And when a trustee has a question, you need to help work through many of the, and I think what Pat said was very important. When you get a new trustee, it is so important to provide an orientation for that person. They may not be familiar with all of the ins and outs of the library. And so many library directors will take a new trustee around or ask the board president to come in and have a special one-on-one kind of review with the new trustee so that their first board meeting, it's sort of not that deer in the headlights look where they're thrown with all of this new information. Like Pat said, they get a bill list, they get things, terms that they may not be familiar with. And so you have to work them through and help them understand what is their responsibilities. Because they've taken on a big job in their community. You know, becoming a library trustee is a 5-year commitment. And for many people, that is a very, very long time, but they're doing it for their community and they're doing it to help their community. Again, make sure that you work within the policies. Bylaws for your board are very, very, very important. And make sure that the trustees are aware of any new legislation. Just recently, we've had the Freedom to Read legislation passed here in New Jersey. It's your job to help to explain to your trustees what that means for their libraries, any legal implications on that. You have to keep up on that because they're probably not going to, but it's your role and your obligation to do that. I want to go just back to one thing that Pat said, and this is sometimes kind of tricky, but you are the library director. But you should make sure that your board does evaluate you every year. It's a very important step for you professionally and personally. Too many times in the past, I've heard, you know, when there gets to be some conflict between a library director and a board, we'll say, well, what did your evaluation say? And they'll say, well, the board hasn't evaluated me in 3 years. That does not do the board any good, and it does not do you any good. So make sure you sit down with your board president and ask for that evaluation. What do they expect you to accomplish during the year? So that if there are any things that aren't accomplished, you can work on those things. So the next slide, please. I think we do it. Next slide, yeah. So there also, when we're talking about this, there's a lot of shared responsibilities between you as the library director and your board. So let's just go through some of them. The development and monitoring of a budget. Again, that's critical. You perform at every board meeting, you should have an analysis of the budget. You should be able to show them not only the bill list, but when you make the budget, say it's 6 months in, are you meeting your goals on where the utilities budget should be? Does it need to be modified in any way? But you need to keep up with that, and the board needs to be able to see that not at the end of the year say like, oh, look, we overspent in our programming budget, so we took the money out of the book budget. Now, you have to make sure that they understand those steps as they go along. Again, the development of policies. I found the presentation on AI just fascinating this morning, and I think that is really going to be something for all libraries to look at how their policies are going to have to change, reflect the new realities of what we do as a profession. So library policies, when we're starting about this, I think Bobby gave us some very good things like, let's start thinking about this. We really need to be starting to talk about library policies. You may not be able to create one right away, but I think it's part of your job to make sure they understand their responsibility in terms of doing policies that keep the library relevant. Again, you need to make sure you have a strategic plan. Back in the old days, we would say a strategic plan should be like for 5 years. That certainly is a dated concept, I would say now. A strategic plan now probably is more like a 3-year plan because things are changing so rapidly. Things you need to be more short-term goals than long-term goals. So you need to be working with your board to have a strategic plan. And again, to review that plan frequently, maybe every 6 months. Have you made those goals? You sit down with your staff and help them decide what parts you can implement during the year. Your staff should also have some input into the strategic plan because they're going to help you implement it for the community. So make sure that you have a strategic plan. Now, again, I think Bob did a great job in terms of giving you some of the overview of state and federal laws pertaining to libraries. So I think you should be able to look at those laws. But again, we keep saying there could be changes and you have to keep updated with the state library, with NJLA, with NJLTA about what new legislation may be coming down that that impacts libraries, and it could happen very quickly. So you have to really stay on top of that, and you really have to help your board understand what it is. They have local connections. They have many connections to their local legislators. So they need to know what's happening, what could impact their library. And then the best thing is promoting the library and community services. One of the things we tell trustees sometimes is they ought to have little business cards, and you should help them get them. Business cards that say they're a trustee, so that their friends and neighbors know that they have an important role in the community, that they are library trustees. So if you haven't gotten your library board's business cards, I would suggest you try to do that. I think it's something they'd appreciate, and it's something that demonstrates their commitment to their community. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, we're just going to talk about briefly the monthly board meeting.
Oh, yes.
This is where you really get to interact with your board. And we're just going to give you, you can look at this. This is sort of the order of the board meeting. They may change depending upon your community, but these are the things that basically the basic components of a board meeting. You're going to open with an open public meeting statement. You always have to do that. Every public meeting you go to, you have to say that this is a public meeting under the laws of New Jersey, and then cite the citation. That's a critical piece because, again, you're a public entity. You need to emphasize that you are working for the public, that you have responsibilities to the public. So opening the open public meeting statement is very important. And as Bob Keith said, I'm sure the video from Michael Cerrone would be great to look at again, because Michael Cerrone had so much experience in terms of library law. It's probably something we all should watch again, because the Open Public Meetings Act is a very important thing that you have to follow. Then you're going to have the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. We also encourage, once you approve the minutes, that they're up on your website. The public should know what you're doing. And I, as working with the trustees, I sometimes look at library websites and I try to see if the board minutes are up there. And I'm sometimes disappointed when they're not, because I think it's, again, a public document, a public statement, and you should have those on your website. Every month you make a report to the board. You talk to the board about what has been accomplished during the month, what your goals were during the month, what you see coming up for the next important meetings. Often the board president will also make a report telling what they see has happened in the library during the month, if they have made any important meetings with other people. Keeping the communication lines open is one of the most important responsibilities you have. And a monthly board meeting is really where that happens. You know, you are talking to the whole board, not one-on-one. You're talking to the whole board so that everyone understands. I think, again, it's a board and you want your board to feel included. So making sure that the board president has a report and you have a report that everyone can understand. Now, there'll be some, we go back to committee reports, as Pat said, depending upon the size of your library. There may be a variety of committees. Generally, there's a personnel committee. There may be a buildings and grounds committee. You know, there are a strategic planning committee. So there are different committees. If those committees are active, then they make a report to the board. But again, as Pat said, nothing can be done in those committees. The board action is only done at the board meeting. They can bring a recommendation, but they cannot vote on it. It's the board as a whole that votes on that. Again, every business has unfinished business, new business. Those are standard items that are on a board agenda. So it's very critical if you say to your board, I'll get back to you next month on that. You get back to them next month on that, because they'll be looking for that. You'll have that under unfinished business, and you come back and say what you did, how you resolved the issue, because the board will be looking for that. Board meetings can also go into closed session. Again, I think you might look under the Open Public Meetings Act, because there are very specific ways are reasons that you can go into closed session, and they're only specific reasons. Like if you're talking about personnel, if you're talking about union contracts, if you're talking about things like that, then you can go in closed session where the board, only the board is there. The public has to leave. It's just the board. And often the director obviously is there, but that's where you're there. If you make any action, you cannot, again, take action. You have to come out and vote on it in public. And again, every board meeting should have a place for public comments. Now that depends upon how your format. Some people make it in the beginning of the meeting. Some people have it at the end. Generally, you can limit how many minutes people can make comments, but they have to have the ability to have public comments at every meeting. I mean, there's a question there, Bob. Do you want to see what it is? Okay. In Q&A? Oh, okay. I don't know where everybody is, but I'll keep talking. Communication.
I'm here. I was trying to get my mouse going.
Q&A.
It's just a quick question. It says, are all board members selected for 5 years, or can this vary?
No, they're all selected for 5 years. But if a person resigns in the middle of their term, say a person was appointed for 5 years, they resign after 3 years, the mayor gets to appoint somebody else, but they only get appointed for the unfulfilled term. That person does not start a new 5-year term. So Mary moves to Florida. She's had 3 years on the board. The mayor, she appoints Emily as the replacement for Mary, but Emily's only going to fill the board for those 2 years that would have been Mary's term, because the way the law was set up is to kind of stagger the board members. So they don't get a whole 5-year term, but they are appointed. The initial appointment is for a 5-year term. Right, Bob?
That is correct.
That's correct.
So we have one other question that I'm going to post something in the chat about
Okay.
this, and that is, where do we find the Open Public Meetings Act? And I am posting the link to the actual statute of the Open Public Meetings Act in the chat. So anybody can take a look at that. That's going to be also in my presentation when I upload it. There was a link
Okay.
to it there as
Thank
well.
you, because that's
Yep.
an important thing, right? Okay. All right, now we'll move on to the next slide. And again, this is one of our 3 C's. One of the things that we talk about, we say that communication is vital. The first C that we talked about was collaboration, that it's a teamwork effort between you and your board. You cannot do this alone. You are the employee, you are the visible head of the library, but you need to have a strong board behind you to be able to accomplish the things that the library community does. So again, looking at what you're going to be doing, your director's report that we talked about as part of a board meeting should be not overwhelming, but try to give people a sense of what's going on. I've seen library boards where the director will present a board packet and then they'll go over the highlights that they think the board should know, not reading everything that they've done, but making sure that the board does understand the statistics, making sure you have monthly statistics. If the director went to any meetings, any professional development meetings that they want to mention, all of this stuff should be in your board report. Again, you don't have to read everything to the board, but making sure that they understand and that you give them a pretty comprehensive evaluation of what's happened that month in your library. Now, again, going back to responsibilities, we talked about committees. You should be able to inform a chairperson if there's any specific responsibilities in their area. And this often happens, as I said, with the building concerns. Did the heater break down that month? You need to make sure that the person's in charge of buildings and grounds understands what's going on, particularly because there may be long-term implications about that, particularly with the building. So you have to talk to your chair people if you have committees, or keep the board president informed. There should be no surprises. You know, you have to make sure that they're not surprised, that they're not sitting in the board meeting and saying like, oh, I heard the heater went down last month. No, you have to make sure your board is informed. And again, we're talking about the new trustees. We think it's really, really important that you have an orientation for the trustees, making sure they understand. You should have, again, under the new trustees, but the things that are there are things that every board member should have. A directory, you have bylaws, you should go over the library policies, you should have an annual report for your library, and then you have a meeting schedule. Now the meeting schedule is supposed to be published once a year on your website. It used to be in newspapers. We don't seem to have newspapers anymore, but you can publish them in electronically so people know when the meeting is. But make sure that you communicate these things and make sure a new trustee and all trustees, maybe at your orientation meeting in the beginning of the January. Most boards reconvene in January. They may elect new officers in January, doing the swearing in of new board members. So that may be a good time to sort of talk about where you're going, what policies you have, and what the annual reports are. And Pat brought up a good policy about library policies. It's really important that you review those policies, not every year, but sort of have a schedule. I don't think any board policy should go beyond 3 years that the board hasn't looked at it, because things change so dramatically. And one of the things, I think one of the lessons we all learned under COVID was how important it was for the library to have policies that the public understood in terms of circulating materials, the times the staff would be working. So there was a constant review of library policies, particularly during COVID. So you may want to go back and look at some of your policies now that we've been back and opening for like 2 years. Are some of the policies that we adopted still important, or should we be reviewing them again? So again, back to our 3 C's, communication is absolutely vital.
Pat?
Yes.
There's a couple of questions I just wanted to get out of the way before you went forward, if that's okay. The first question says, for committee reports, should they submit the written report or just verbal? Don't these reports have to be kept on file?
My assumption is that you should have written reports, but you know, that
It's, yeah, sometimes that's a tough one. You should have written reports, I believe, even if they're very, very, very brief. And usually it doesn't necessarily have to be a separate report. It can be a report that is given at the board meeting and included in the minutes.
Okay. Next question. Should a Board of Trustees Code of Ethics be located on the library's website?
I think as much information on the library website as possible.
Their bylaws, their
Yes,
code of,
the
yes.
bylaws, your annual report, again, your minutes. That's, as I said, I look for minutes a lot, because sometimes I'm trying to find out the names of your trustees to put them in the NJLTA reports, but I'm looking for that. So as much, again, transparency is important everywhere, but especially in a library. So I think it's very important that you put that all up there. Yes.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree.
All right. Is it true that County Library Commission does not require bylaws?
I've never heard that. I've never seen that written anywhere, Jen. I don't know why they wouldn't require bylaws. The thing about county libraries is that you may have to understand that. I think there are my mind might be a little rusty here, but there are 14 county libraries. 2 of them have special legislation, Cumberland County Library and Morris County Library. Some of the libraries do not actually have library commissions. The Atlantic County Library, the Sussex County Library, and the Mercer County Libraries do not have library commissions. They have advisory boards. They don't have commissions. So there may be different ways in which they interact because they were organized under something called the County Reorganization Law of 1976 or something like that. But there are 3 so there are 3 county libraries that don't actually have county library commissions. They have either advisory boards, etc., but they don't have commissions. So I think it depends upon how the library is organized, but I think any structure an association library, a municipal library, a county library needs bylaws to absolutely understand how it's operating. But again, if it's not, you know, some of these county libraries may not be operating, they have advisory boards, not truly commissions. They work under the auspices of the county executive generally. Does that help?
All right.
Anything
I
else?
hope so. Yeah, two more quick questions. Is it the library director's responsibility to call all the committee meetings and manage the minutes, agenda, etc.?
No, I don't think it's the library director's responsibility. I think it more likely you should be working with your board president to say, we have a committee meeting needed, and the board president should be taking some leadership role in that aspect. Would you say that's right, Pat?
I would think so. I definitely think that the library director needs to make it clear when a committee meeting is needed. It's a tricky one with these committee meetings. Sometimes you try to schedule something on a monthly basis, and then you find, you know, we don't really need to have a meeting. So it seems to work best when the meetings are as needed. But I agree that if the director thinks, oh, we really need to have a meeting for example, for personnel, we're working on a contract and we need to have a meeting, they need to make sure that the president knows, and also to communicate with the chairperson, because sometimes the committee chairperson can feel sort of left out if they never ever hear anything directly from the director, if that makes sense. But no, I think the committee really needs to take, the committee chair should be taking care of whatever minutes and doing the committee report during the meeting.
Yeah, I agree. Not the director. It is the committee.
Not the director,
It's not
no,
the director, it's the committee's responsibility.
right.
Okay. Final question in the queue. In the absence of the library director at a hold on a second. This is kind of jumbled. In the absence of the library director at a board member due to an emergency, can he appoint the most senior staff person to give his report, address issues as the board president leads the meeting? What is the expectation in this case? I think basically if the library director isn't available for the board meeting, can the library director appoint another staff person to report out for the library director at the board meeting?
I don't see
Think
why
that's what you're
not.
saying?
You could have the assistant director, or you could have one of the department chairs, I would think. I mean, sometimes it works out that if the library director is not available for a board meeting, depending on what's going on at the time, the board meeting might be rescheduled. But if it's just a typical board meeting and it doesn't seem like it's going to be essential that the director is there, I don't see why another staff member cannot give the director's report.
I agree, because I think the board president is the one who's actually saying.
Who's chairing the meeting, right?
Meeting, not the director. So again, if circumstances are that the director cannot be there, the person is only acting instead of the director. You know, it is the board president who is acting as chair. So I think we both agree that that's probably okay. Hopefully that doesn't go on for a long time, but that's okay in terms of an emergency, because it is the board president who is actually controlling the meeting in terms of leading the meeting. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Just so you know, it is 11:53.
All right. Well, we'll get through these fast. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We don't want to stay in
Thanks.
front of lunch. Okay. Now, I think
Right.
I've talked about most of this. Communication is vital. Making sure that you talk to your trustees, that they know what they need to do. Nobody likes surprises.
Right.
The board can disagree, and that's fine, but those fights should be, or not fights, discussions, heated discussions should remain in the board meeting, because you do want trustees to bring up various points of view. There's, you know, that you just don't want anybody lockstep. If they disagree, you'd much rather they say it in a board meeting than go out in public and start saying like, well, I would have said this. No,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that the communication, that they feel, for lack of a better word, empowered to say what they want to say at the board meeting. And that way you get a better decision out of your board. So I think that's enough about communication. Pat, are you gonna?
All right. Yeah, no, we'll continue. And now we're talking about cultivating relationships. And some of this is going to be a little repetitive, but you want to get to know your trustees. You don't want to just put blinders on and let's like, oh, okay, here's another appointee. Let's ignore them. Because you have to, let's go back and say you have to really collaborate. And recognize that each trustee does have specific skills. As I mentioned earlier, it's not required that a trustee be a real gung-ho library user, but they have been appointed and hopefully they have specific skills that are really going to benefit the library. You want to make sure that you work with the board president to match the trustees with the committees. So it makes sense with their skills and their interests, and tap the skills that could be useful for public relations, community outreach, strategic planning, financial experience. That is really very, very important. Also, you want to cultivate relationships that might not necessarily be completely with your trustees, but you want to encourage your trustees, if you have a friends group, maybe to join your friends, to get involved with the Chamber of Commerce yourself and attend meetings. And keep in mind, as Pat had mentioned, there might be disagreements, but that the disagreements are on the actual item, on the policy or the procedure, and it has not with personality. And if you have a good relationship, it's easier to see one another's perspectives. And the discussion and brainstorming work well when people share a personal relationship and a common mission. And the common mission is always having an excellent library. So just as a reminder, our keys to success are to collaborate, communicate, and cultivate. And on that last one, cultivate, here, trustees will be more engaged when they really feel that they've been accepted and they're comfortable and that they can speak without being criticized. You want to make sure that you identify community connections. As I mentioned, your Chamber of Commerce, your Historical Society, other organizations. You really want to reach out and network because the library is part of the community and you are not working in isolation. You want to think of unique perspectives and, as was mentioned, to encourage trustees to share their thoughts and missions. You want to, as I said, advance the mission of the library and make it the very best it can be. Now, there can be problems. There can be potential problems. You might have a trustee who has been appointed to the board. They don't really have any interest. Maybe it's a political thing. And that's that, or they might have a personal agenda that has nothing to do with the library. You might have a trustee who doesn't prepare for meetings, doesn't really attend meetings, shows absolutely lack of interest. And there are things that can be done legally, that if a trustee is absent for like 3 or more meetings, 4 meetings without any reason at all, there can be a recommendation to remove that trustee, but that might not necessarily always work. Sometimes you'll have a trustee who's a little bit too much interacting with staff because you remember you are the professional. You are leading the library and you're working with the trustees, but you have the day-to-day operation of the library. And you might have a trustee that does just have a different view of the library's goals and mission. And as you can deduce here, it could be like overstepping. You could have a problem with a trustee who is trying to micromanage the library, which is not ever a good thing. So to counter that, you want to encourage your trustees to pursue continuing education. And as has been mentioned before, Michelle, Bob mentioned, there are plenty of places to go. Give them the tools that they need to succeed. I do hope that if the library budget permits, that the library will take on the putting in application and paying for the membership to NJLTA. Because it's really very important, as Pat had mentioned before, and Bob mentioned, very, very important that that your trustees belong to NJLTA. We do have monthly trustee check-ins, and that's co-sponsored with the State Library and NJLTA. And we also, there are some programs also through New Jersey Library Association and Library Link NJ. And all of that is online. So I don't need to read this to you because just in case there are any questions at all. And then are we to the point that I guess I have mentioned this, but Pat, were you going to say anything more about these resources?
These are good organizations. You should be members of those. And I am rapidly going through the trustee renewals right now on my kitchen table. So I hope you get your library board, send them in all the vouchers that I get to sign. It's wonderful because you see that.
Right.
And I'm very happy when I get to do that. So.
And you know what, you should be aware that NJLA is implementing a new website in March, and NJLTA communicates with their members through the NJLA website. And I do believe that it's going to be greatly improved, and we're going to be able to push out information more quickly to trustees. And perhaps directors are also interested in seeing what is put out for their trustees.
Because as again, this is a partnership, and that's why it's so important that you as a director work with your board. It is a partnership. It ends here, the partnership that works. So that is what we have. So we think it's important that you often join programs together so that you hear the same thing, that you can work together for your library. So congratulations to all of you who are starting your careers as library directors in New Jersey. It's really exciting. I know you're going to make a difference in your community. So, and just coming today, knowing that you're putting continuing education yourself first, important. So thank you for coming. And the State Library always does a great job putting this together. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I have to add my thanks. And as was mentioned before, if you have any questions, do email Bob and he will get back to you right away. I can guarantee that he will, because I have experienced that. So yeah, no, thank you very much. And I hope you found this helpful.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope you did.
So Pat, thank you so much for coming again today. For so many years now, we always would never leave NJLTA out of a new director's training, and we appreciate your perspectives from the trustee side of things on how a library director can better work with their board. And I just want to add a couple of things to that. And that is for you directors, Bob and I had mentioned before in regards to library law that you can call us at any time, or not me anymore, but Bob, and and everything is confidential. Well, over the years, Bob and I have also fielded a lot of calls where maybe you as a director are running into some problems. Maybe it's with your community, or maybe it's with your trustees or your municipality. And who do you turn to? If you're having trouble with your trustees or one or two trustees, who do you turn to? And there's been many conversations we've had with library directors who just call us up I don't want to say you want to vent, but we're here to listen to that. We're here to offer maybe our expertise on best practices on how you can get around some of the sticky situations. So, it doesn't always need to be a clear-cut phone call or a library law question. And I also bet that Pat and Pat would be willing to field some of these calls from you as directors too, on very sticky situations that may come up. So you can feel free to call with those sorts of issues as well, and we'll help as much as we can, giving you our experience or what other directors have done, or best practices, ways to handle things. That's entirely up to you, but you are welcome to call us. And then the last thing I wanted to add, and I'm not sure if the two Pats mentioned it, but in having let's look at the relationship that trustees often have with your municipalities. And what I would encourage you as directors to do, and I know, and from being a previous director, I would go and I would speak before council, and I would call the mayor, and I would talk to the CFO, and if we needed more money, I would go and speak to that. But really, you need to have your trustees do that for you. That's not to say you can't have any kind of relationship with your elected officials, but what you don't want is especially in today's world where librarians are, it's very difficult, the challenges that are happening to us. We don't want, the sort of the blame, the anger, whatever it is from the mayor, the municipality, the public directed towards the library director. So when you have those sorts of issues, please talk to your trustees, and it really should be the trustees who are going to protect you, and they're the ones that are going to go to the municipality and ask for more money or deal with the council or whomever, with a particular sticky situation. And that is they're protecting you as the director. So if you could at all negotiate that sort of thing with your trustees, that when a situation like this happens, you're going to ask them to speak up for the library and not send you to the front lines. That's really a best practice. And that's the way it should be done. So, and that's kind of protecting yourself too from any unwarranted, accusations or whatever. You know what it's like today. So with that, Pat and Pat, thank you very much.
That was a great point.
That's a very good point.
That was an excellent point to make sure, and something we should emphasize more with trustees, that they should not be putting that on their directors. That was an excellent point. They are appointed by the municipality. They have the responsibility to work with the municipality. That was an excellent point, Michelle, and I hope that we've even seen some places where an individual trustee has been kind of paired up with a council person, where they would this is your council person, you make sure they know what's going on at the library. So you made an excellent point, Michelle, and I think that all the directors should work with and hopefully when we do a new trustee training, we will emphasize that point, because that's an excellent.
Just saying, I learned by experience.
The trustees need to appreciate their director and protect them. Yeah, for sure.
And then they used to give me a warning. They would say, "Oh, Michelle, before you go to council, I just want you to know that I may have ticked them off when I went before them last week about whatever." And I would say, "You're not helping me." But yes, that is a good point. So thanks again. Been a pleasure all these years. Hope I see you again.
Oh
Take care.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Thanks. Okay. So now, as we set up for our last program of the day, you'll get done right in time to have a late lunch. We'd like to bring on Michael Mazekian, who's going to talk to you about library budgeting. Hello, Michael. Welcome. So Michael Mazekian has now been at the state libraries. Have been 2 years yet, Michael? 2 years. Congratulations. But Michael has a lot of experience as a library director himself. He was the director at the Kenilworth Public Library and at the Cranford Public Library. And then we kind of poached him for this new position that Jen Nelson created for shared services. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about shared services and what Michael is doing next week when you meet our New Jersey library staff. But, you know, since he's also been a library director, we figured that we would actually use him to do this library budgeting piece for public libraries. So Michael, welcome back. And thank you again for agreeing to take time out of your schedule and present for us.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you, Michelle, and in front of everyone, congratulations on your upcoming retirement, and to all of the new directors here and some familiar directors here as well. I'm very glad you've joined us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and drop my video. So give me 1 second to do that. How are we looking here, Bob?
Looking great. Very good.
Excellent. All right, wonderful. As Michelle just mentioned, good afternoon. I'm Michael Mazikin. I'm the project specialist for shared services at the New Jersey State Library. You'll hear a little bit more, as Michelle said, about what my role here is at the State Library next week, but I work with Jersey Clicks and Palace Project and all kinds of really fun stuff that you're going to hear a lot about from me in the coming years. But today I'm here to talk about budgeting and financial reporting for libraries. Today's presentation was originally created by Kathy Schalk Green, formerly of the Mount Laurel Library. It was further adapted by Chris Carbone of the South Brunswick Public Library. And I spent 10 years working at the Kenilworth and Cranford Public Libraries as the director. I successfully survived 10 budget seasons, and you will too. So in this presentation, you're going to learn about the tools that you need to manage your library's finances, generate reports, plan for large capital expenses, and complete your annual audit. Please post any questions that you have in the chat, and time permitting, I'll be able to take a look at them at the end of the presentation and answer what I can. So let's get started. So to many new library directors, the budget can be one of the most daunting elements of library administration. Some of you may already have experience in purchasing materials, tracking invoices for speakers, performers, or vendors, or writing grants. For others, this may be an entirely new and intimidating responsibility. I assure you, this responsibility is not nearly as intimidating as it seems, because your experience that you already have in the library field is invaluable. Put simply, libraries are concerned with the categorization, tracking, and dispensation of thousands of physical and digital records, each represented by multiple alphanumerical identifiers, ISBNs, call numbers, barcodes. You're already the master of a head-spinning arrangement of records. You're already a numbers person, and compared to the skills in categorization that you already have, budgeting, you've got this, start to finish. So we're going to talk a bit today about the continuous financial cycle, and that takes place in several repeating, overlapping stages. The first stage we'll talk about, planning, involves determining the total amount of revenue that will be available to you in a single year, reviewing past practice of previous administrations, and allocating funds appropriately for next year's budget. The monitoring stage, which covers the entire year, involves generating and reviewing reports of revenues and expenditures and making adjustments as necessary. And the evaluation stage involves reviewing a full accounting of revenues and expenditures. If you are working in a New Jersey public library, this will include an independent audit by a third party. Information collected during the monitoring stage and reviewed during the evaluation stage will provide you with all the tools that you need to plan ahead for next year's budget. It's a continuous cycle. Note that area up in the corner, special project planning. Special projects can include grant-funded initiatives, capital projects, and other initiatives which may depend on outside sources of revenue. These might exist on cycles that are independent of the continuous financial cycle we just talked about and your annual budgeting process. We'll talk a little bit more about them later on. So it's tempting to think of that cycle as step 1, step 2, step 3, but as a new library director, you may be starting or may have started your job at any point in this process. Fortunately for you, past practice will see you through this first cycle. You're going to want to take the time to review prior year budgets and audit reports to look at baseline numbers, trends, and recommendations that previous directors and boards have made. You don't need a comprehensive knowledge of your library's financial history. To start off, just look at the last few years. If your library has a dedicated bookkeeper, accounts clerk, or financial coordinator, they will likely have a wealth of information to support your transition, and the treasurer on your board of trustees will be able to fill you in on your role and the prior director's role in the development, expenditure, and evaluation of the annual budget. You'll want to review minutes of past board meetings as well. In particular, minutes of those meetings leading up to the passage of last year's annual budget. This will help you catch up on any discussion or actions recently taken by your board and administration. If your library has an active or recent strategic plan or a capital improvement plan, this will also give you valuable insight on the library's priorities and goals and what has been done to move towards those goals. Finally, be proactive and contact the chief financial officer who represents your municipality, city, or county. You'll be involved with many conversations with your CFO throughout the year, and you'll be working together in the long term. So reach out and introduce yourself. You may notice immediately that parts of your financial cycle may be redundant or inefficient or otherwise imperfect. That's okay and not uncommon. If it's not completely broken, you do not need to rush to fix it. Municipal finance contains thousands of safeguards and requirements, which can be important and often burdensome. But as a new director, your role is to learn about your budgeting process, and those safeguards and requirements are there to make sure that everything runs smoothly and in a legally compliant fashion. There's room to improve your financial cycle later on. Right now, take the time to learn the ropes. So here's a common question that people have right off the bat. Where is the library's money actually stored? The answer is it depends. In some New Jersey municipalities and counties, the library board consents to having the municipality or county hold their money and generate payments and checks to vendors and external agencies. This option is legally viable with a few important notes. First, a municipal agency must fund their library at the minimum standard for a municipal and county library. We'll come back to this a little bit later to explain exactly what it means, but there's a floor of funding that is set for municipalities and counties in New Jersey if they have municipal or county libraries. Second, your board of trustees should make a monthly request for expenditures paid by your municipal agency. Third, even if your municipality is generating checks and making payments on the library's behalf, your board will still need to vote to approve payment of the library's bills, commonly by voting on a bill list every month. Now, in the other common scenario, the library maintains its own bank accounts and generates payments to vendors and outside agencies directly. In this case, the municipality has the option of making a lump sum payment or quarterly payments to the library. Either way, the municipality must make a payment to the library, at least 1/4 of the library's third of a mil allocation by March 31st each year. And this is true whether the municipality operates on a fiscal or calendar year. Before we really get into the details of the budgeting process, a few words on a subject that is outside the scope of today's presentation. The detailed purchasing process involving the generation of purchase orders, approval of expenditures, New Jersey's pay-to-play rules, state contracts, and much more. While the purchasing process is governed by a wide range of rules, regulation, and laws, your local processes can vary widely. For example, depending on where your money is held, purchase orders may be generated by library or municipal officials. Work with your township CFO and finance officers and your library's bookkeeper, accountant, or office manager to familiarize yourself with that local process. Be aware that in municipal purchasing, paying bills can take time because of the layers of safeguards and approvals that are needed. Most vendors familiar with purchasing in New Jersey are aware of this and will be willing to work with you on scheduling payments. Just keep an eye on any payments that you have committed to or appropriated funds for. It will impact your total available funds for the year. All right, so let's get to it. We're going to start with the basics of the budgeting process, and in particular, the planning stage. Here it is, one of those definition slides. In the simplest terms, a budget is an amount of money available for spending that is based on a plan for how it will be spent, or a plan used to decide the amount of money that can be spent and how it will be spent, or an official statement from a government about how much it plans to spend during a particular period of time and how it will pay for the expenses. In all of these cases, the term to focus on is plan. Budget is your financial roadmap for the year. Like a map, it will keep you on the right track. Even if you run into a sudden slowdown, accident, or change of plans, it will ensure that you continue moving the library in the right direction. Oh, I lost my notes for a second there. And I have them back. So the budgeting timeline. At this point, you may have noticed that there is no one-size-fits-all budgeting solution for libraries. Libraries can have different fiscal years. A library operating on a calendar year budget will approve, monitor, and evaluate expenditures from January to December. A library operating on a fiscal year budget can cover the same ground, but for any 12-month period, most commonly July to June. The library may operate on the same fiscal year as their local municipality or not. There is no one right way to approach the process. As a new director, as I mentioned before, this is the time to go easy on yourself and follow past practice for at least one full cycle before recommending changes. You may find that the system in place works well, or you may gain knowledge that helps you to envision a better system in the future. When you start the budgeting process, you will always want to take these steps into account: establishing financial goals for the fiscal year, gathering information, differentiating between needs and wants, determining special project costs, and the development of a plan. A couple of things you keep in mind before we go into each detail about each of these areas. When it is appropriate, you should involve your staff in the budget process. For example, you'll need input from your staff members involved in purchasing library materials so that they can help you keep track of pricing, trends, and local interest as you make decisions regarding your collection development budget. And you should also regularly ask for input from your trustees to get an impression of their short-term and long-term goals in how the library will serve the community. Establishing financial goals. A few things to keep in mind as you create your budget. Do you intend to attempt to increase salaries, or does the library have a contractual obligation through a collective bargaining agreement to increase salaries? Do you want to increase material spending? Are there any areas where you hope to reduce spending, or will budgetary constraints require that you do so this year? Are there any capital expenses on the horizon, such as a new building, expansion, renovation, or expensive improvement that will require the development or maintenance of a reserve fund? As you navigate this early phase, remember to set realistic goals and expectations. Don't be afraid to ask other library directors for advice. Comparable data is available. For example, the New Jersey State Library publishes basic financial and other statistical data collected from libraries as part of the process to ensure they meet the requirements to receive per capita state aid. You can find this data on the New Jersey State Library's website, listed under statistics. Let's move on to gathering information. The first thing that you're going to need is your anticipated income. That's what you can spend next year. If you are the director of a municipal library, the bulk of this funding will be your minimum municipal funding allocation, a third of a mil. To calculate your third of a mil, and please don't write this down. You will, in general, not need to know this exact formula, but just for your information, because you'll hear about it a lot. You add up the total assessed property value of all taxable property in your municipality, which then goes through a process of equalization involving your county officials, and this represents the equalized property value for your community. For every $1,000 in equalized property value, your municipality must allocate 33 cents to the public library. Very simple, right? Okay, don't worry. The New Jersey Treasury Division of Taxation produces equalization tables every October and publishes them on their website. And the New Jersey State Library and multiple other library supporting agencies around the state work to generate a list of minimum funding requirements for New Jersey municipalities shortly afterward. A couple of caveats. Minimum funding rules are different for county and association libraries. So speak to your board of trustees or library commission if your library falls within one of those categories. The minimum level of funding for county libraries is 1/15 of a mil, and often association libraries are not subject to a minimum level of funding. Municipalities and counties can, and often do, fund their local libraries at a rate higher than the minimum third of a mil allocation. And recent legislation permits municipal libraries to seek an increase in local library tax funding based on a voter-approved referendum. Beyond the minimum level of funding and the funding that you get directly from your municipality or county, other potential income can come from fines and fees, interest, gifts, grants, foundation funds, and a range of other sources. Your recent financial documents from previous years can help you get a handle on these revenue streams and the basic expectation of how much your library can expect to bring in from these sources. So we're going to talk about expenses next. Fixed and known expenses are planned expenses which lack significant wiggle room. Often the library cannot continue to provide services without them. Your personnel expenses are an example of fixed expenses and often will make up the largest single part of your budget. This includes salary and wages, payroll taxes, pension costs, health benefits, and other personnel-related deductions. Your service contracts for heat and air conditioning, cleaning, annual audits, fire suppression, system inspections, elevator service, postage meters, and more are going to be another large piece of your fixed expenses. Utilities such as electricity, natural gas, and water will fall under this category, as well as telecommunications and connectivity costs. Fees for your integrated library system, shared services agreements with your municipality or library consortium. Basically, if this is a fixed cost which cannot be easily adjusted, consider it a need. Estimating these fixed costs can appear challenging, but by allowing yourself time to plan and prepare, you'll be able to manage just fine. Look at the last few years of financial reports and audits, and you should be able to see what has trended upwards and downwards. And in that way, you can estimate the rate of change. Some of your services may be covered by multi-year contracts, so it will be easy to see the fixed cost until the termination of that contract. Of course, that means planning ahead from when that contract comes to an end. But by looking at how your utility, telecommunications, etc. costs have changed over the last few years, you should be able to plan ahead accordingly for potential flat budgets or increases in those areas. Speaking of which, most contracts are negotiable, and vendors understand both the budgetary constraints of the library world and the rates of their competitors. An estimate from a vendor does not equal a commitment, and many vendors will come back with adjusted services or rates, but only if you communicate your library's needs to them. Just take care with large-scale projects, which over certain thresholds will require publicized requests for proposals and sealed bids, which takes the prospect of negotiation off the table. In addition, as a library director, part of your role is staying on top of trends that are not necessarily specific to libraries, but can profoundly impact library services. Mainstream news sources can help you stay ahead of trends related to utility costs, while news sources that cover New Jersey politics can give you an edge when it comes to increases to pension contributions or healthcare related costs. Keep your ears open. Any conversation with your CFO, board treasurer, or any knowledgeable member of the community or staff may include valuable insight in what's coming down the road. So now that we've covered fixed costs, let's talk about the variable costs or wants. It may sound absurd to consider library materials a want rather than a need, because after all, what is a library without its library resources? Think of it this way. If you are facing a $1,000 shortfall, you may find it easier to reduce the library's materials budget by about $100 each month than to tell the electric company that you're going to pay them less each month. Consider your variable costs to be any budget lines that you can adjust on the fly without making a major material change to the library's services. Any funds you allocate to books and media, programs, office supplies, non-essential technology upgrades can be classified as variable costs. Once you've established your fixed costs, the rest of your anticipated income can be divided up to meet your priorities and the priorities of the library board. Special project costs, AKA, this is the wish list. Consider these to be items that don't fit neatly into the regular annual budget that will keep the library in operation, but that would fill a specific need or provide a new and valuable service. Implementing self-checkout stations, replacing aging technology that is still functional, developing a new international language collection, starting up a bookmobile service. These are all examples of special projects. You may find that you can't afford to set these projects in motion now, but make sure you keep a record of them and any estimated costs you would take on and benefits to the library and the community that you serve. At any point during the year, unexpected funding sources may become available. A bequest, a state or federal grant, relief funds, or just an anonymous donation. And if you have plans for a shovel-ready project, you'll want to be ready to seize the opportunity. All right, so now talk about how to make that budget. For a simple and straightforward budget on a spreadsheet or using your library's accounting software, if you have it, group your anticipated revenues and expenses or budget lines into the same categories that you will use on your annual per capita state aid report. This information is available on the New Jersey State Library website. You've met Bob Keith today, who is the master of all things per capita state aid. But also older reports submitted to the state should be available through your library, at your library. Your top level categories will include salaries and wages, fringe benefits, materials costs further broken down by type, computer costs, plant operation and maintenance, and other operating expenditures. Using this structure will make it easier to organize financial data when you fill out the annual per capita state aid survey to receive your funds. At the end of this planning process, your anticipated income should balance with your anticipated expenses. If your anticipated expenses are higher than your anticipated income, you're going to need to adjust your variable costs, your wants, in order to balance your budget. Here's a simple budget drawn up for a municipal library. You can see columns for what was budgeted in 2024, what was actually spent, and what is being proposed for 2025. Your local budget will likely have many more budget lines included. For both income, for example, you may have lines for interest and fees or fines, and expenditures, including things like professional development costs and postage. So just view this not only as simplified, but oversimplified. As you can see here, income in 2023 was slightly higher than 2024 was slightly higher than expected due to an unexpected grant or gift. You can see that in the third line at the top. As a result, budget lines were adjusted to make up for the additional income and to ensure a balanced budget at the end of the year. For 2025, it appears that the $0.33 appropriation has increased by almost $15,000. Great. Let's look at how it's being spent. You can see projected increases of approximately 2% for salaries and wages. Insurance and utilities costs are projected to increase, information that this director may have obtained through reading articles, speaking with municipal officials, or just otherwise staying on top of the zeitgeist. While grant and gift income was higher than expected last year, it can't be relied on to be just as high this year. So the director has kept that budget line the same. Once all of the fixed expenses have been attended to, this director has chosen to adjust variable costs, lowering expenditures on certain types of materials and increasing other lines. Computer costs, as you can see in the 2025 budget, are considerably lower. Perhaps in 2024, a larger than normal amount was allocated, spent on replacing outdated peripheral equipment or other related devices. This is fine. A good multi-year technology plan can help spread out and plan for costs like these. Finally, a bit of fine-tuning, here you can see that in the library materials serials line, allows for a total expenditure which matches the total expected income, a precisely balanced budget. There's no way to plan for every unexpected windfall or pitfall, but with a good plan in place, there's always room for adjustment later. So a couple of potential scenarios here. If your income, your revenue, exceeds your expenses, great, consider yourself very lucky. It's a good time to review your wish list, to look at some of those projects that you may want to implement in the coming year. On the other hand, you may want to create or add to a restricted capital fund for large-scale improvements to the library. If your expenses are higher than your income, don't worry, this is workable as well. You'll just need to adjust some of your variable costs, such as non-essential supplies, technology that doesn't necessarily need replacing immediately, or your library lending collections or digital collections to be able to create a balanced budget where your income matches your expenses. How am I doing on time? So far, so good. So congratulations, at this point, you will have a budget fit for presentation to your board and, depending on local practices, your municipal or county officials. You're going to want to provide a document that gives a simple breakdown of your anticipated revenue streams and expenses. But you don't need to provide your full calculation worksheets that you use to get to that point. People aren't likely to read those. You can make them available on request and be prepared to reference those full calculations and explain how you came up with your numbers. For example, you're unlikely to be asked how many children's board books you're planning to buy, but you'll almost certainly be asked how many employees you anticipate having on the payroll for the year. In preparing for your budget presentation, ask for help from your Library Board of Trustees treasurer or your Finance Committee chair. They can and should be involved in this process. Once your presentation is complete, your library board will vote to approve the budget, at which point it does become binding. From that point forward, it is your role as library director to adhere to the budget, monitor spending, and inform your board of any major potential changes, roadblocks, or new funding opportunities become available along the way. We've made it to the monitoring stage. We're going to talk about some of the most useful tools you can generate to stay on top of the financial cycle in the next section of this presentation. Monthly financial reports will be focused on. Before we start, a quick reminder, there is no one-size-fits-all solution for library finances. Some libraries generate reports in-house using free or proprietary spreadsheet software like Excel. These take little training to adopt, but generating reports can be more labor-intensive. Other libraries use more complex accounting solutions like QuickBooks. More training is required for new users, but generating reports can be a breeze. Again, as a new director, work with the system you have in place for at least one full financial cycle. There's always time to adjust later. The most common financial reports that you'll want to generate, review, and share with your board of trustees are the Budget Control Report, which shows expenditures over a fixed period, versus total budgeted expenses. The profit and loss statement, which shows the deficit between income and expenditures over a fixed period. And the bill list, which is a detailed breakdown of bills to be paid over a fixed period. Here's an example of a budget control report. This report will tell you if you are over budget, under budget, or on target for your fiscal year. Let's look at the rows and columns in this example. Each row represents an overall section of the budget, such as personnel costs, or a specific budget line within that section, such as salaries. The first column represents, for each budget line, all annual expenditures up until a specific date this year. In this case, that date is in December. The second column shows the amount that was allocated to each budget line in which when this year's budget was originally passed. So let's look at that salary line. In this case, the library has spent $42,000 on salaries, but has allocated only about $33,500, meaning that there are still funds to be expended in that line by the end of the fiscal year. So you can see a budget control report is how much have we spent and how much money do we have left overall. A profit and loss report is similar to a budget control report, but instead of showing the amount expended in each budget line versus the total amount allocated to each line for the year, profit and loss reports show how much money has been received or expended over a shorter fixed period. Here you can see the income section of a profit and loss report covering the period of January through December. Each row represents a source of income, such as interest, fines, and gifts. Your monthly income won't always match your monthly expenses, and that's okay. As long as your expenses don't exceed your total cash on hand, that is fine. Profit and loss reports are useful because not all of your anticipated income will be available at the start of your fiscal year. For example, if you're working on a calendar year budget, you won't receive your per capita state aid funds until later in the year. By reviewing past profit and loss reports, both from previous administration's tenure and your tenure, you can predict when major sources of revenue and also major expenses are likely to arrive. And this is a bill list. Your monthly bill list serves two important purposes. First, as a detailed report on every bill which needs to be paid each month. It will help you stay on top of your expenses, fluctuating prices, and the needs of your library. But your bill list will also be reviewed and approved via a vote by your Board of Trustees or Library Commission every month. A thorough and detailed bill list ensures that benchmarks for accountability and responsibility for the library's finances are met. So having gone over few of the most common reports that you're going to encounter, we're going to move on to the last stage of the continuous financial cycle, the evaluation stage, including the audit process. As you near the end of your fiscal year, if you have been maintaining thorough records, reviewing monthly reports, and managing your income and expenses effectively, you should have a good understanding of your budget and a great framework to draft your next budget. But in New Jersey, an additional step to ensure accountability and accuracy is required, and that's your annual audit. All municipal and county libraries must receive an audit each year. There is no mandated time frame, but it is a good idea to complete your audit within the first 6 months of a new financial year. Why is that? Well, it'll give you time to implement any recommendations that your auditor provides into your next financial cycle. If you are paying for your audit out of the library's budget, you should request a proposal that includes the cost of the audit and the scope of work that the auditing agency will provide. You should do this even if you are using the same auditor as your municipality or county. The price of audits can vary wildly, so you can reach out to other library directors in your area and ask what they are paying. If the cost seems high, you can bring your negotiation skills to the table or seek an audit from a different vendor. Ask for help from your treasurer and your bookkeeper as you prepare for your audit. If your municipality generates payments or handles payroll for you, you will need to let them know that your audit has been scheduled as well. While the auditor may look at any aspect of your financial cycle, there are some things you can be certain that they will need. Bank statements, bill lists, minutes of board meetings, proof of checks written, bank deposit records, and payroll records are standard requirements for an audit. Depending on the size of your library and the complexity of your finances, your audit may be a very quick or a very protracted process. Either way, you don't want to be afraid to ask questions of your auditor, of your board, and of other library administrators along the way. When you receive your audit report, you're going to want to look straight at any notes or recommendations from your auditor. Ask the auditor to sit down with you and your board treasurer to review the audit report. Remember, this is not an IRS audit triggered by potential financial mismanagement, but a vendor-client relationship intended to help you meet your requirements for compliance with the law. Now, if you're given any recommendations to change your internal processes, you should ask questions. It is worthwhile to ask how many other public libraries the agency audits, or how many of those public libraries have this procedure in place. Remember, as the paying client, it is your right and responsibility to ask questions. And as the vendor, it's your auditing firm's responsibilities to work with you to help you meet standards for compliance with the law. We're taking a step outside of the continuous financial cycle as promised for a moment to talk about capital. Capital expenses are funds required for new buildings, major renovations and additions to buildings, replacements of large elements of infrastructure such as roofs and HVAC systems, periodic major infrastructure upgrades, which can include some elements of your library's technology plan, and other projects that are outlined by New Jersey statutes. You can find more information on this and lots of subjects on the library law pages of the New Jersey State Library's website. Your capital budget allows you to plan ahead for major infrastructural projects. Because of the expense of these projects, planning can take years and should take need, the age of current elements of infrastructure, and the likelihood of those elements failing into account. If it's possible, you may want to set aside some operating funds towards future capital expenses, only if you can afford to. If you do, make sure that you have a written capital plan with estimated costs and timelines for your planned project or projects. You will also need to reserve funds for capital through a resolution voted on by your board. This will help insulate the library from requests that unexpended funds be returned to your municipality or county or other funding agency. And for many large-scale projects, you will need direct financial support from your town or county. If your town or county owns your building, they are responsible for supporting capital projects that are deemed ineligible for support through the annual mandatory library appropriations. So you're going to want to work closely with your library board and your municipal or county agency so that everyone is aware of the library's capital needs, of any work that has been done so far to address those needs, and your local agency's schedule for determining their annual capital budget. You'll also want to stay on top of any news about grants, bonds, or other potential sources of income that could support your library's planned capital projects. But remember that much of the responsibility for capital projects will fall upon your funding agency. So I'm going to wrap this up with a few important things to keep in mind and a quick review. And then we're going to talk about some resources that you can rely on as a library director. So we started here. We talked about the overlapping planning, monitoring, and evaluation stages of the continuous financial cycle. We talked a bit about planning for special projects. Wherever you are entering this process, again, said it a few times already, but give yourself time to experience at least one full cycle. If the system isn't completely broken, you do not need to fix it today. Instead, you need to familiarize yourself with it. And then, if you determine it will help the library, make your improvements. The return of excess funds law requires that remaining funds at the end of the year which exceed certain thresholds and fail to meet certain guidelines must be returned to your local municipal agency. Therefore, you must take caution when it comes to excess operating funds that have not been dedicated to an existing plan, like a capital plan. If you find that you have more money than you can spend, you will want to work closely with your board treasurer and look to the New Jersey State Library's guidance on our library law pages to determine what you can do to secure those funds for library projects. The state mandated third of a mil municipal appropriations for all municipal libraries are posted by the New Jersey State Library each October. Once the State Treasury Department's Division of Taxation releases data on equalized property values for municipalities in New Jersey. The State Library also publishes on their website links to laws that are relevant to New Jersey libraries, including information on pay-to-play requirements for expenditures and the local fiscal affairs law. It is not light reading, but it's important information for you to engage with as a library director. Even more, as I mentioned before, your township's or county's chief financial officer can be a great resource for information and assistance, but only if you ask. And that's why it's so important that you take the time to introduce yourself early. You're going to be involved in many discussions with them going forward. The New Jersey Department of Community Affairs Office of Local Government Services also provides a wide range of information on municipal fiscal administration. You can learn more about the laws governing municipal finance at www.nj.gov/dca/division/DLGS. Talked a little bit before about where to find comparable data about New Jersey libraries. If you want to see how other people spend their money, there are several places you can look. There's the IMLS Search and Compare tool, and then there's New Jersey Public Library Data and Analysis that's compiled by the New Jersey State Library. Please bookmark these links when you get a chance. I will be sharing this presentation with attendees after this program is over, so you'll be able to grab links from right out of there. Finally, I'm sure you still have questions at this point, so here are a few things to keep in mind. You can contact your auditor or accountant at any time throughout the year to ask about past or best practices. And you could also reach out to the New Jersey State Library, or you can make contact through the New Jersey Library Association. In my experience, connections that I had made with library workers throughout the state, in my experience with NJLA, was endlessly valuable. And it reminded me that whatever challenge I'm facing, I wasn't the first to face it, and I'm not alone in facing it today. Neither are you. There's a terrific network of librarians, including library directors that are active members in NJLA, and please take the opportunity to reach out to your colleagues. All right, so now you're the expert on budgeting. Of course, it's going to be an ongoing process. As I said, give yourself time and grace during this first year as a director. You're going to do great. You're going to get through the process. It's going to be the first of many. Good luck and congratulations on your new position at your library. Now I'm going to check the chat and take a look at some questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for the moment. I'm going to turn my camera back on, and I'm going to see what we got.
I'm sorry to disappoint, but you covered everything.
Hardly, but as I said, you know where to find me at the State Library here. If you have any questions for me, anything that you saw in this presentation that you'd like me to clarify at all, please feel free to reach out. My email address I'm going to drop into the chat right now. That's me. And then Bob, I'll make sure to get you this presentation.
Yes, please.
And we'll get it out to everyone.
Okay. So, Michelle sends her regrets. She had to pop off for the end of presentation. So, on behalf of her, I just want to thank you, Michael, for taking the time to teach everyone here all the ins and outs of budgeting and finance and things like that. I'm very glad I have never been, nor will I ever be a director, because while I like math, I don't like money. So it's I'm glad that you guys can do it and things like that.
If we can add, as a director in the past, I relied very strongly on Bob and his expertise, and you will do the same over the years.
There you go.
you for
Thank
having
you.
me here.
Thank you very much. So so I just want to share my screen real quick and share the agenda for next week. At some point it'll share. Okay. So we have on February 19th, 9 o'clock, the same time we started today. We'll start off with getting to know the state library with representatives from the Library Development Bureau, the Research Library, IT, and the Talking Book and Braille Center. They'll each be giving a short overview of their departments and what they do. Then at 9:45, we'll be seeing and hearing Leah Wagner talk about managing library staff. Then we'll have a short break. And then Amy Bear Shields will talk about discipline, the most dreaded task. Yet another reason why I don't want to be a library director, because I'm not good at telling people what to do. And finally, we'll have Tiffany McClary, the Director of Marketing Communications at the State Library, talk about marketing and PR for your library. And then we'll have our wrap up, and that'll be it. So again, if you have any questions for me or anyone else, please let us know. You have our email addresses and contact information and things. And so on behalf of Michelle, the Pats, Jen Brenner, thank you very much for hanging out with us today. And we will see you all next week. Bye-bye. I'm going to
Bye. Thanks, Bob.